Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll see what happens. We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I am a dissident.
Don't move. Move.
I'm saying no. Why you hear Palantir, 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 Palantir? It's not going to stop.
Seriously, we need to release the F-scene list.
Turns off.
I am not a church boy.
Turns off.
They're full-on vampires.
They hate our beef. They hate our beef. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Sunday evening edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello. And Russell Dobular will be right back.
All right, there you go. Nice. How is everybody doing? How am I coming through? Am I coming through okay? I hope I'm coming through okay. I had I called, so I had something happen yesterday, the day before yesterday. I think it was the day before yesterday. Maybe it was yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Anyway, whatever it was. I signed up for YouTube TV. Because it's got a bunch of stuff that I like and it's cheaper than the TV package. And I used to not have a TV package at all. But I don't know, maybe for the football playoffs or whatever, you want a TV package for a month. So I got the YouTube TV package. So I call the cable company and have them cancel the TV package that I have that I'm not using. And part of the reason I don't use the TV package that I have with Spectrum, my cable provider, is because I have 3 kids, and when you have 3 kids, you constantly lose remote control. So when you have TV through Spectrum, you need to keep track of the box and the remote that goes to the box separate from the remote that goes to the TV. And with 3 kids, it's just impossible. You lose remotes within hours of finding it. And so the YouTube TV, I could control, well, I could watch YouTube TV on my phone, I could watch it on the computer, or I could control it just the way I would control my TV from my app. So I figure, all right, I'll get YouTube TV. I don't need the Spectrum TV service anymore. Of course, in order to cancel your TV service with Spectrum, it's not just a matter of pushing a button. No, they hide the instructions for how to do that. So if you want to cancel TV service with Spectrum, you got to call them, and then they have to pitch you a million different sales options to try and get you to spring for something as opposed to just canceling the TV package. So what they offered me, I mean, they made me a very good deal. They said you could get faster internet, 500 megabytes per second. I said, well, the faster internet, the better, because I do streaming for a living. So they said, okay, great. You can get 500 megabytes per second internet with a basic package, TV package or whatever, for, much less than I was paying at the moment. So I said, okay, fine. So I spring for that, which is not really springing for it because I'm saving money in the long run. Or saving money in the short term. It's like one of their, promotions or whatever. So I get a text from my wife today while I'm on the road, and she says the streaming is a lot slower now since they upgraded, which is the opposite of what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be faster, but maybe it's slower.
Shittification, baby.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's so. That's a long way of saying I know on my end the countdown was buffering a little bit. So I hope it's not bad. If it is, I have to call Spectrum and tell them to undo the promotion and just give it back to me the way I had it before. So if there's something glitchy tonight, that's why. That's why.
All right.
It's just everything's a scam, everything's a lie, everything's hypocrisy, and so I don't comply.
All right. So look, I forgot Keaton was even coming today. I was like, that's it. The detectives are here for me, man. That's it. They came. They found me out.
So I started the day. I got in the car at 6:30. I drove into Manhattan today. I told Russell last night. I said I'll be there at 9:00. I was there at 9:15, but I called him at 9:00 right before I got on the George Washington Bridge. What a pleasure driving in on a Sunday morning in January. I said Mondani is killing it so far. What an easy drive. I mean, no comparison between an Eric Adams commute and a Mondani commute. I mean, it's just night and day. Already winning so much.
Well, you can feel like it's not about rugged individualism anymore. It's about collectivization.
Yeah,
so
it's the
people
warmth
are more
of collectivization.
cooperative.
Yeah,
they let you in. They let you in the lane now.
Yeah, they let you in the lanes now.
Different.
It's very different. Whole different. A parking space. I got a parking space right across from Russell's apartment, right across the street. I didn't know I was going to get a parking space. I said, if I can't get a parking space, I'm going to have to call you. You're going to have to come down. So I'm about to get on the bridge. It's 9:00. Russ is in Harlem. So for those who don't know the geography of New York City, he's fairly close to George Washington Bridge. So I said, I'm right about to get on the George Washington Bridge at 9:00. I call Russell to tell him I'll be there at 9:15. No answer. I'm like, all right, maybe he's still asleep. I told him at 9. I was a little nervous that.
Oh, you called me?
Yeah, I called you a few times. Because I told you I was coming.
I slept right through that.
Well, I was afraid that because you were with friends last night in Queens doing pizza and beer, I was afraid you got drunk and just fell asleep in Queens, and you weren't going to be there.
No, that wouldn't happen.
That wouldn't happen.
I don't drink like that.
No. But, whatever. If it's pizza and beer, you might just say, oh, I'll go back in the morning. But, he forgot that I was coming. He forgot that I was coming. And so, luckily, I got a parking spot, and I was able to buzz the door. I was able to ring your buzzer. And that woke you up, I guess. Right?
Yes.
Did you wake up because of the buzzer ring?
Well, because I took, during the pandemic, I didn't want to take any sleeping pills. I was at one point having trouble sleeping. So they gave me an allergy medication that is sometimes used that way, but it's not a sleeping pill per se. So I took one of those.
Right.
One of those. That's not enough to put you in a coma, but it's enough to make you sleep through the phone ringing.
Yeah. If you had slept through and not, so for those who don't know, the show came very close to ending today. This could have been the last. You might not have seen a show again. Because if I had driven all the way down there and you slept through my shit, I wouldn't have been able to forgive that. I wouldn't have been able to move past that. We'd have had to have ended.
That would have been payback for St. Louis.
That would have been it. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. That would have been it. That would have been it. We would have had to just close the shop. I don't think I could. I don't think I could have worked with you if that had happened. Luckily, it didn't.
This is what I got.
Oh, the Gigi Allen poster. Yeah, I dropped that off.
This is an original poster from his last appearance before he died.
Wow.
He played this gig and he died that night.
Wow, that's wow. What a gift.
Yeah, that is quite a gift. Quite a gift from an audience member. Yes. Somebody who came on the Weird New York tour, and because I covered Gigi Allen on that tour, gave me the poster.
That is pretty awesome. So just a program note, Michael Tracy was going to join us tonight, but he will not be joining us tonight. The Wi-Fi out on the island is no good. I'm kidding. I'm joking. Ha ha. Just
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
he kind of disappeared on us for a day. It's 'cause
He left his keys there. He had to
yeah,
fly
right,
back
yeah,
out.
exactly. Yeah. No, he was apparently sick. He was under the weather because I noticed he was offline for about a day, and he messaged us this afternoon. He says, "I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well. Can we reschedule?" So it looks like we're going to do it next Sunday at 7:00. We'll have Michael Tracy on, but it works out in a way because a lot of news to cover a night, a lot of important developments on Somali fraud. Right? What about that Somali fraud story? I know everybody's chomping at the bit to hear what the latest is on the Somali fraud. Wow, what a psyop that was! Holy God! Wow, what a short shelf life that had.
That was the best psyop ever.
Poor Nick Shirley. You know, it's funny because Russ and I were talking, and we did our best propaganda of the year as part of the countdown show, and it really is. I mean, no recency bias. I don't think recency bias aside, that Somali fraud thing was snuck in right before the buzzer. New Year's Eve, and that really was, I think, the best propaganda of last year, all year.
Just freaking, you reminded me, man. I would have been mad if I had forgotten this.
What's that?
Hang on. Are we able to? Oh, we can't load anything in still.
I guess not.
I have a sound drop to put in.
Oh, well.
So now, hang on. If I take one out, will I be able to put one in?
Maybe. It's kind of weird. I don't know how it's been working.
Being very strange, right?
In theory, you should be able to replace one with another one. But it doesn't always work that way. It's not always to be.
All right. I just deleted one.
All right.
So let's see.
We're at 1886 in the YouTube chat. Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. Jake is in the booth. Shout out to Jake. 654 filing over it on Rumble. Thanks, everybody, for being here. It's been a while. We are now back at the grinds. Back at the grinds.
Right, yeah, that worked.
All right. Beautiful. We had 2 consecutive holiday weeks, but we are back at it in a big way this week. You'll be seeing a lot of us this week. Russell will be solo hosting the Jimmy Dore Show tomorrow at 6 p.m.
You
Eastern.
are buffering, man.
I am? Okay.
You are buffering.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Russell will be solo hosting the Jimmy Dore Show at 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow.
I will be having Kurt on.
Yep. So Kurt will be there, and I think you got Max Blumenthal on, right? He'll be joining.
Got Max Blumenthal, and I'm going to have Jose on at the top of the show. We're going to talk about his latest confrontation with Bitchy Torres.
There you go.
The billboard they have up in the Bronx. The Herculean efforts the Democratic Party is using to flood the zone to try to keep him from picking up their voters. A lot to talk about. And then we have Max Blumenthal on. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Venezuela, and we'll be doing some segments in between. We couldn't get Max until later, so he'll be on the Rumble side. I'll have Jose on the YouTube side. We'll do segments on both sides.
And then I will be solo hosting the Jimmy Dore Show on Friday. On Friday, we have special guest friend of ours, Caleb Maupin, will be joining me for about half of that show. And then we have, of course, our regular scheduled shows. Russell is leaving for Asia on Wednesday, which means Kit Cabello of Heartlands Media will be joining me in the co-host chair on Thursday for the midday show. So a lot going on this week. Back at it in 2026. Welcome to our first show of the year. Thanks for being here. And
welcome.
What better way to start the year than with a regime change war?
What better way, man? It was everybody saw it coming. You know how I found out? So in the middle of the night, I woke up and I looked at my Facebook like you do, and it said, "Don't even look at the news, go back to sleep." Somebody had posted that. And I knew. I was like, we went into Venezuela. I knew it. It
was like 4 a.m.
Yeah, I knew it. And then I looked at the news, and sure enough, they were right. That was good advice I should have taken. All right, so let's get into it. Let's rock and roll. All right, so tonight's going to be a little unusual because Keaton drove down. I'm doing the bulk of the work tonight and the bulk of the segments anyway. Keaton's going to pick up all the super chats because I have a lot of videos I'll have to load in on the transitions. But I feel good about that because I am sure it's going to be the other way quite a bit when I'm in Thailand and I'm like, yo, Keaton, man, I've been shitting for 3 days. You got to put the segments together, you know.
Yeah.
I can sit there. I might have to run to the bathroom a few times.
Exactly.
So, you know, give them a little easier night ahead of that. All right, so let's rock and roll. Okay, so our illustrious great leader truthed this out. The United States of America
has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow. There will be a news conference today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump, signing off.
So yeah, here's a little bit from ABC just to give you an overview of the operation.
We're not doing this in vain.
The capture, known as Operation Absolute Resolve, came after months of planning, gathering intelligence to understand how Maduro moved, from how he lived to what he wore and ate. The president giving the green light at 10:46 p.m. Eastern on Friday, with this message to U.S. forces and intel agencies: good luck and Godspeed.
We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we debrief, we rehearse again and again, not to get it right, but to ensure that we cannot get it wrong.
More than 150 U.S. aircrafts launching from 20 different bases across the Western Hemisphere under the cover of darkness. The president and his national security team watching from Mar-a-Lago. Videos circulating online showing explosions near a Venezuelan military base and port as U.S. helicopters arrived in Caracas around 2 a.m. local time Saturday morning, where they faced heavy gunfire. The president says Maduro tried to get to a safe room.
He was trying to get into a safe place. You know, the safe place is all steel. And he wasn't able to make it to the door because our guys were so fast.
U.S. forces capturing Maduro and his wife from his own country, taken to the USS Iwo Jima. President Trump posting this picture of Maduro on board.
Nicolas Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was provided multiple very, very, very generous offers and chose instead to act like a wild man.
Back home, members of Congress caught off guard, only notified after the operation began.
How many 17-year-old girls do we have to set you up with to get this oil?
President Trump standing by the operation, saying Maduro's capture should serve as a warning to the rest of the world.
But I will never allow terrorists and criminals to operate with impunity against the United States. This extremely successful operation should serve as warning to anyone who would threaten American sovereignty or endanger American lives.
President Trump says no American lives were lost. The president also says that Maduro's vice president will now serve as the country's interim leader. But again, there are still these big questions on what exactly comes next, including how the U.S. plans to take control of Venezuela.
All right. So that was just really the beginning of the humiliation ritual that they enacted on Maduro. Ahmad Eldon tweets out, so technically another head of state could go into Israel, kidnap the war criminal Netanyahu and his wife, and bring them back to the homeland to face justice? What are we waiting for? You know, that's a good point. That's a good point, given that there's no more international law, given that people in other countries are now subject to U.S. law. It's pretty interesting for a political faction that has argued for political autonomy for their own nation from UN standards and from international law. So I guess they like international law as long as international law means U.S. law applies internationally.
Yeah, it means we can find you anywhere.
As long as we can find you.
We can find you.
So here's a little bit of Maduro there in chains.
This is at Stewart Air Force Base, Newburgh, New York. I used to live 5 minutes away.
Oh, is that at Newburgh? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because all these people were posting on Facebook, what are all these police doing out here? Because they were escorting him.
Right. So that was just the beginning. Then Maduro was paraded through the streets of New York with the van doors wide open. New footage shows heavily armed American forces transporting Nicolas Maduro through New York City streets. And if you listen closely towards the end of this video, you can hear some chuds on the street chanting USA.
Those are all the pop-collared date rapists who couldn't get into the boom boom room.
Yeah, see, I know you think we don't have that particular flavor of regard in New York, but you're very wrong.
Well,
You're very wrong. We do. Must have been driving through my native Queens there, or maybe Staten Island at that point. If you're a history buff, what this probably calls to mind for you is the tradition of the Roman triumph. Roman triumph parades prominently displayed captured foreign leaders in chains at the head of the procession as a symbol of subjugation, followed by war booty, soldiers, and the victorious general in a chariot, culminating in the execution or imprisonment of the leaders, emphasizing Roman power and the humiliation of conquered peoples. This is very much a modern version of that. They made a point of parading the captured foreign leader before the adoring crowds. Today, the adoring crowds watch electronically rather than to line up at the forum for the pleasure. And of course, this has gone very viral, probably destined to be one of the iconic images of history. This image of Nicolas Maduro in sensory deprivation with headphones and dark glasses on with a bottle of water. Now, of course, not that these guys are to be troubled by any of this, aside from the fact that this is an obvious violation of all standards of international law. That in and of itself is a crime. By posting this is Adam Cochran. By posting this, Trump is violating Article 13 of the Geneva Convention. It prohibits the use of media humiliation against POWs. If Trump claims he isn't a POW and instead a criminal under U.S. jurisdiction, then he's violating multiple other domestic legal rights. Yes. The New York Times reports that this is what finally pushed Trump to send Delta Force to storm Caraco and abduct Maduro. Apparently, Trump, no fan of the dance. No fan of the dance. He is not a lord of the dance. According to the New York Times, this week he was back on stage, referring to Maduro, brushing off the latest U.S. escalation, a strike on a dock that the United States said was used for drug trafficking, by bouncing to an electronic beat on state television while his recorded voice repeated in English, "No crazy war." Mr. Maduro's regular public dancing and other displays of nonchalance in recent weeks helped persuade some on the Trump team that the Venezuelan president was mocking them and trying to call what he believed to be a bluff, according to two of the people who spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to talk about the confidential discussions.
Well, if he had done a little mashed potato, if he had done if he had done a little James Brown, that I could have tolerated. But I don't go in for that Spanish jungle music there he's dancing to. That gives me a headache. They used to come through my neighborhood with a bullhorn. I hated it. I hated it. That's what it makes me think of. It made me think of them selling those churros on my corner. I hated those people. But hey, all's well that ends well. ICE accidentally sends Maduro back to Venezuela. So actually he's back now. So hey, what are we gonna do for the rest of the show? No, unfortunately it didn't turn out that way. Now you can see how absolutely absurd their basic premise is by some of what they're claiming this is based on. Is from Pam Bondi. Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. Maduro has been charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, possession of machine guns,
and destructive devices. What are you talking about? He's the leader of a nation with
The
a
head of
standing
state.
army. He's
Yeah.
the head of state. What kind of a charge is that? That's a 1935 law here from DD Geopolitics. The most absurd part of Maduro's so-called indictment, even setting aside the drug-related charges, is the accusation of possession of machine guns and destructive devices. Let that sink in. The president of a country with a standing army is being accused of possessing machine guns. The U.S. is a joke. Yeah, but it's a very deadly joke in the hands of these people. And then if you just want to see like the typical incompetence of the D-listers who are willing to work for this president, they messed up right in the first paragraph of the indictment. For over 25 years, leaders of Venezuela have abused their positions of public trust and corrupted once legitimate institutions to import tons of cocaine into the United States. Now, it's a small point, but part of being a good lawyer, part of lawyering, is to be the kind of really anal retentive person who would not miss an obvious flaw in language like that, because so much of legal contracts are about very, very precise use of words and phrases that you can't afford to mess up. And then you have a team and you have paralegals to comb through these things to make sure you didn't make a mistake that can be exploited by a smart lawyer later. Is very typical of the kind of people who are attracted to working for this administration.
Yeah, certainly on line 2 of the indictment, you don't want to make
On
a
line
mistake like
2,
that.
right up
Yeah,
top.
right up top.
But hey, it's not all fun and games, not that they care. At least 40 people were killed in Saturday's attack on Venezuela, including military personnel and civilians, according to a senior Venezuelan official who spoke on condition of anonymity to describe preliminary reports. And Blade of the Sun tweeted out, one of the people the USA killed in Venezuela was Rosa Gonzalez, 80, who they blew up in her apartment. Will you hear this on the European news? I doubt it. Indeed, I have not seen any reports on that in Western media. But hey, there's probably a reason for that. They're too busy glazing Trump for this illegal military action. From Semaphore, news organizations held off on reporting Venezuela raid. The New York Times and Washington Post learned of a secret U.S. raid on Venezuela soon before it was scheduled to begin Friday night, but held off publishing what they knew to avoid endangering U.S. troops. Two people familiar with the communications between the administration and the news organization said. Spokespeople for the White House, the Pentagon, and the Washington Post declined to comment on the conversations between journalists and officials Friday night. A Times spokesperson didn't immediately offer a response to an inquiry. But it doesn't stop there. If you look at the kind of language that is being used, even in outlets like The Guardian, I mean, if you really follow The Guardian, this will be no surprise, that are supposed to ostensibly be left. So Carlos tweeted this out. The Guardian hates Trump, but not as much as it hates socialist and anti-imperialist states. The story on the U.S.'s flagrantly criminal attack starts by referencing Venezuela's authoritarian government, thereby implicitly legitimizing this regime change operation. When push comes to shove, The Guardian, Fox News, CNN, BBC, Sky, etc., are all on the same side. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I keep saying. These are different traps for different types of mice. Some people need to be talked into imperial regime change wars with the threat of Somalis dating their daughters, and they go to Fox and Benny in the Closet and those kinds of outlets. And then the libs need to be told it's about the world order and freedom and democracy and all that. They go to CNN and the others, but it takes you all to the same place. And the way the ostensibly left outlets do it is very much like that. They subtly, subliminally program their supposedly left or liberal readers into justifying these kinds of actions by defining the government in certain ways, by instilling certain assumptions about the election that are not proven, and then they go along with it. Washington Post went so far as to do a whole ass op-ed, and this is from the editorial board. This isn't like Brett Stevens doing an op-ed. This is the editorial board. Justice in Venezuela. This is a major victory for American interests. Just hours before, supportive Chinese officials say all of this language, it just inculcates you with empire thinking. And for something like the Washington Post, its readership, along with the New York Times, they think that they're enlightened liberals, right? But that enlightened liberal take tends to have a very Cold War set, very Cold War mindset. The communists are evil. I just went to see the production of Chess, the Cold War musical, and I've become a little too radicalized to deal with that book. Like the Russians kill people for losing chess, right? Our commie friends, if you could tell me if anything like that ever happened, I haven't gotten a chance to look that up. I'm betting they didn't kill people for losing at chess. I'm betting that didn't happen. But anyway, supportive Chinese officials held a chummy meeting with Maduro, who had also been propped up by Russia, Cuba, and Iran. No doubt millions of Venezuelans will remember who backed their oppressor and who affected his removal. The end of Maduro will be a failure if it doesn't also corrode the influence of American adversaries in this hemisphere. Because you know what? We're proving to be so responsible with power. What could be better than to eliminate our rivals and give us less checks on our power? That seems like a great idea right about now. Maduro's removal also sends an important message to tin pot dictators. If you looked at who rules you before you wrote this editorial, in Latin America and the world, Trump follows through. President Joe Biden offered sanctions relief to Venezuela, and Maduro responded to that show of weakness by stealing an election. There were 800 election monitors attending that election. The ideal outcome would be for Maria Corina Machado to take power. Her Freedom Manifesto, influenced heavily by America's Constitution, is the best outline for Venezuela's future. And by future, we mean a dystopian hellscape of shrinking gains for workers and increasing gains for oligarchic elites like the family that Machado is from. What happened in Caracas was a clear reminder that America's military and intelligence capabilities are second to none. No doubt this debate will continue, and it's good for democratic hygiene to scrutinize the decision. Now, he should spend the rest of his life in a humane American prison. His downfall is good news. Well, when you find a humane American prison, you let me know. Maybe the one Jelaine is in. Maybe that one's a humane American prison. You got to be a sex trafficker with dirt on the president if you want to get that kind of treatment. Otherwise, you're out of luck. Now, I'd like to tell you this doesn't work. And actually, I can tell you something positive. It's not like Ukraine. Like, I'm not seeing the libs all lining up. But I have seen libs share pictures of Machado. You go, girl. You know, like it's out there. And this is where they get that from. So Trump was very excited about this. He watched it live on TV.
We're there now.
He said it was like watching a TV show. I don't have that video, but you can imagine. Elon Musk was very excited about this. Congratulations, President Trump. This is a win for the world and a clear message to evil dictators everywhere. Our friend Jose reminds us of one of his past bangers. We will coup whoever we want. Deal with it. Yeah, well, I mean, that sounds like a man taking a moral position rather than a might makes right position. Really sounds like it's about the sweet air of freedom, right?
Well, that was that tweet was referencing Bolivia and their lithium.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which he needs for his cars.
Yeah.
Yep. Emmanuel Macron. He took a break from sucking his wife's dick to put this one out. The Venezuelan people are today rid of Nicolas Maduro's dictatorship and can only rejoice. See, so for anyone who thinks the Europeans are like more enlightened than we are, no. They wear nicer suits, but they're pretty. They have better taste in art, I would say.
Their wives have nicer cocks.
Their wives have nicer cocks. Yes, they hide them better. They have that special tape. By seizing power and trampling on fundamental freedoms, Nicolas Maduro gravely undermined the dignity of his own people. The upcoming transition, kind of like when you force your entire population to pretend that a man is a woman and you marry her and insist that they recognize him as such. The upcoming transition must be peaceful, democratic, and respectful of the will of the Venezuelan people, etc., etc. You got the gist. Could have been written by Lindsey Graham. So here's a little bit. We're going to focus in on some of the more relevant parts, but right now we're just giving you an overview. So he did a big press conference. A lot of stuff came out of that. But here's Trump promising, we're gonna run the place. We're gonna run it.
We're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place.
Are you saying that Secretary Hegseth and Rubio are going to be running Venezuela, and will you be sending in U.S. military troops to provide?
Team that's working with the people of Venezuela to make sure that we have Venezuela right. Because for us to just leave, who's going to take over? I mean, there is nobody to take over. You have a vice president.
And everybody knows we're so good at running things that we should be running another country. This is getting boring for us, just running one country, because it's so easy. It's so easy. Everybody says to me, it's unbelievable. You make it look so easy. All the other presidents, it looks very hard on them. You see Obama, he comes in, he looks 25. By the time he gets out, he looks 75. Look at me. I'm getting younger. They call me the Benjamin Button president, a lot of them. So I said, give me a challenge. Give me another country to run as good as I run this one.
President who's been appointed by Maduro. And right now she's the vice president, and she's, I guess, the president. She was sworn as president just a little while ago. She had a long conversation with Marco, and she said, we'll do whatever you need. I think she was quite gracious, but she really doesn't have a choice. We're going to have this done right. We're not going to just do this with Maduro, then leave like everybody else, leave and say, let it go to hell. If we just left, it has zero chance of ever coming back. We'll run it properly. We'll run it professionally. We'll have the greatest oil companies in the world go in and invest billions and billions of dollars and take out money, use that money in Venezuela. And the biggest beneficiary are going to be the people of Venezuela. And also, I can't stress this strongly enough, the people that got thrown out of Venezuela that are now in the United States. And frankly, some want to stay and some probably want to go back. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So a little later in the conference, Rubio, standing next to Trump, says Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this, which really didn't accord with what Trump said earlier in the day about his negotiations with Maduro.
I want to be clear about one thing. Nicolas Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was provided multiple very, very, very generous offers and chose instead to act like a wild man, chose instead to play around. And the result is what we saw tonight.
He wanted to negotiate at the end, and I didn't want to negotiate. I said, nope, we got to do it. He was trying to negotiate at the end. You probably saw that. And trying hard to make a deal. And I said, this could have been a very foolish thing if it didn't work out. But I said, nope, we can't do it.
We would have negotiated, but I started those Spanish dances. And that was it. I couldn't let that go. It was an insult to me as a man that he was doing that Spanish dancing. I used to call him Mr. Jones. Show me those Spanish dances, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, so you got that because we're so good at running countries. That's worked out for us so well in the past. From South Vietnam to Afghanistan. It's always worked out so well when we've decided to go in and set up puppet governments in other parts of the world or directly rule them ourselves. What could possibly go wrong? So here's Secretary Whiskey Breath here explaining how this is America First policy.
Had his chance, just like Iran had their chance, until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around and he found out. President Trump is deadly serious about stopping the flow of gangs and violence to our country. Deadly serious about stopping the flow of drugs and poison to our people. Deadly serious about getting back the oil that was stolen from us. And deadly serious about reestablishing American deterrence and dominance in the Western Hemisphere.
You understand? They stole the oil under their own feet in their own country. They
we're
stole
going to
it
get
from
more
us.
into that later. Yeah.
That's why, Keaton's got a whole segment. I'm not going to get into it, but that is just an amazing thing to say on the face of it.
Yeah.
To say the resources of another country are yours. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine too.
Yeah. This guy sounds like Mamdani.
This is about the safety, security,
It's socialism,
freedom, and prosperity of the American people.
Did Taibbi tweet about this? About the socialist overtones of excess idea of ownership?
Yeah, it's funny how you debunk Russiagate for 10 years and land on Mamdani is Stalin.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing arc.
It's a journey.
It's an arc. That's the most surprising arc since Walter White.
Yeah.
America first. This is peace through strength, and the United States War Department is proud to help deliver it. Welcome to 2026, and under President Trump, America is back.
We're back. We're back, I tells you.
If you're a man and you like that, you're gay. You're a gay man. That's it. You're a gay man.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly. So
nothing wrong with it, but just be comfortable in your
hey.
skin. Be who you are.
Right. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with it, but there is something wrong with processing it in this destructive a manner.
Yes. So Hegseth talks quite a lot about drugs. They're all talking a lot about drugs. So Trump got asked, hey, did you just pardon the former drug dealing president of Honduras? What's up with that?
You said that Maduro is responsible for drug trafficking. You recently pardoned the former president of Honduras who was convicted on many drug trafficking. Can you explain how these two situations are different? And would you ever pardon Maduro?
I endorsed, as you know, the winning president, the man who won in Honduras. I endorsed the man who won in Chile. I endorsed the man who won in Argentina. And we are doing very well.
Herschel Walker was a bridge too far. I can understand that. The man is brain damaged. I can understand why they didn't want to be represented by a man who clearly has been brain damaged from years of head trauma.
Yeah.
But my picks usually do pretty good.
Pretty good. With that whole group, what the man that I pardoned was, if you could equate it to us, he was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump. That didn't work out too well for them. This was a man who was persecuted very unfairly. He was the head of the country. He was persecuted very unfairly. And there are a number of them. And we felt that it was a very unfair situation that happened to him. He's also a party member of the man who won. So obviously the people liked what I did. And one of the reasons that was done is because of the fact that the party in power felt very strongly that that man was treated very badly. I studied it very quickly, and then I studied it in great detail. I went to a lot of the people standing behind me, and they felt that that man was persecuted and treated very badly. That's why I gave him a pardon.
All right. It was felt that he would play ball. It was felt that he would play ball, that we could use him to our own interests. All right. You want me to be honest? That's the truth. Okay. But this kind of bullshit, people like it better. They like it better. So Rubio was also asked about this on Meet the Press, not being quite as consummate a bullshit artist
as Trump. He was a little more awkward with it.
Read the indictment. This guy used the levers of their security apparatus not to arrest drug traffickers, but to cooperate and facilitate the trafficking of drugs for the purpose of getting them into the United States. And that's going to stop.
And yet, Mr. Secretary, a month ago, President Trump pardoned the former president of Honduras, who was just starting a 45-year sentence for trafficking more than 500 tons of cocaine. Does that not undercut the administration's stated goal, as you just said, to go after these narco-terrorists?
Number one, the former president of Honduras. So this is not someone who was in power, had any influence of the politics of Honduras any longer. Number two, I don't do the pardon file. I'm not against it or for it. I just didn't review the file, so I can't speak to you about the dynamics that led the president to make the decision that he made. I think he talked about it yesterday at the press conference. He reviewed the file. He went through the arguments in it, and he felt that the former president of Honduras was treated very unfairly by the previous administration and made the decision that he made. But I think the answer, whether you agree with that decision or not, people can disagree. I mean, there's people out there who make a living out of disagreeing with anything President Trump does. That doesn't mean you leave Maduro in place. That doesn't mean you don't go after Maduro. That's not the answer. I see people saying that. It's like, well, you know, how can you go after Maduro if you didn't do this? That's absurd.
Right. The way this works is heads I win, tails you lose.
Is not to leave in place someone who's been indicted, who hasn't even faced American justice yet, but now will.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I was referencing, obviously.
We only give light sentences, commutations, and pardons to sex traffickers and drug dealers, but you have to be the kind that we can work with. If you're the kind we can't work with, we send in the Navy SEALs. That's how it works. And just to remind you, the Honduran president planned to shove drugs right up the noses of the gringos. According to witness in New York drug case, President Juan Orlando Hernandez allegedly sought access to a cocaine lab run by Giovanni Fuentes, strangely the uncle of Nick Fuentes. I'm kidding. Yeah. And again, I don't want to get us sued right at the top of the year. An accused drug trafficker who is due to go on trial in New York in March. So this is there's an old article, but yeah, no, that's who Trump pardoned. It's interesting. Rubio saying there's no political angle because Trump drew a political angle. He immediately starts talking about how the party, the one aligned with his party, won. Right. So is that pardon part of that? Because he signaled to them, this is who I support. This is the party I support, and I'm going to pull back all U.S. financial aid, and we're going to economically punish you if this guy doesn't win. So the Democrats are really standing up, man. They're standing up. They're an inspiration to freedom-loving people everywhere, like they always are in these situations. Here's Chucky the Shoom showing the kind of moral resolve that he's known for.
Is running out of money at the end of the month. There are a number of other ways that, along with the War Powers Act, what would you consider at all using government funding as a way to leverage when it comes to Venezuela, or what other mechanisms or tools can you use to hold the administration accountable?
Yeah, well,
use the government shutdown.
The 30-day, January 30th is days away. Let's first get all the facts out. That's what we're endeavoring to do right now. And our first ability to do that will be the War Powers Act of this week. And again, we are saying to the Republicans, this is your responsibility. President Trump is a member of your party. You've gone along with him over and over again. And this is one time you've got to resist him. It's too serious.
Okay, so basically they're uncharacteristically on message, I must say. Debbie Wasserman Schmuck, Hakeem Jeffries, they all put out basically exactly the same statement. Nicolas Maduro is a terrible dictator. You should have come to Congress, though. It's good that you did this, but you should have come to Congress. We got to talk about congressional authorization. The idea, like, that you shouldn't have done this and you have no legal authority beyond the question of Congress, that this is a violation of international law, that they do not get into. And overall, the tone is one of support for the action just not the process. It's very Democrat. It's a process argument. You didn't go through the right channels to do it. Glenn Greenwald. Republicans and Democrats always unite for new wars and regime change operations. It's one of the most beautiful parts of Washington among many. Foreign policy bipartisanship. Yeah, they can't just glaze Trump, right? They got to make it look like they're the resistance, right? So they're going to talk about this war powers thing without actually challenging the core premise of going in and getting a foreign leader and dragging him to an American court because we're charging him with a crime. So here's how do actual Venezuelans feel about all this? It kind of gets lost in the imperial shuffle, right? Oh, those people who are most affected by what we're doing. So here's the vice president now, I understand sworn in as president, Delcy Rodriguez, whose father, as we will see, Max actually interviewed her 4 years ago, was actually tortured under the old U.S. supported regime. Governments around the world are simply shocked. Let me turn this down a little. That the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela is the victim and target of an attack of this nature, which undoubtedly has a Zionist tinge. It is truly shameful. Our father liberator said it in the Jamaica letter. The veil has been torn. We have already seen the light, and they want to drag us back into darkness. The chains have been broken. We have already been free, and our enemies intend to enslave us again. If there is one thing that the Venezuelan people in this country are absolutely clear about, it is that we will never again be slaves. All of Venezuela is mobilized in the decree that has already been signed by President Maduro, the only president of Venezuela. There is only one president in this country, and his name is Nicolas Maduro Moros. Okay, so it doesn't seem like they're all that into it. Here is a protester on the streets of Venezuela, unlike the fake videos, we'll get into this a little later, that you're seeing from Benny in the Closet and others. Here's a real, actual video from inside Venezuela, giving you an idea of how Venezuelans feel about this. Free, comrade. Long live Venezuela of patriots. Revolutionary Venezuela. Chavez's Venezuela. And the Venezuela of our brother president, Nicolas Maduro Moros. Comrade in the international institutions, stop being pimps and make a real statement, because we are mastering a people that has fought for decent housing, a people who have fought for food when they took everything from our children. Today, we call them to those international institutions that proclaim themselves, because this American government is not the police of the world. And we Venezuelans are going to prove it. This is not with a president, is with a worthy people, comrade. That is present here. Okay, sometimes AI translates these things a little funny, but you get the gist of it. So here's Max about Delcy Rodriguez, the acting president now of Venezuela. I interviewed incoming Venezuelan president Delcy Rodriguez in her office 4 years ago. Toward the end of our exchange, I asked her about her father, revolutionary leader Jorge Antonio Rodriguez, who was jailed and tortured to death by the U.S.-backed government in 1976, and how that experience has informed her as Venezuela confronts the coordinated violence of the opposition and threats of invasion from Washington. Reflecting on the torture that leftists endured under cover of liberal democracy during Venezuela's Fourth Republic, she said, quote, "The same forces who disappeared people, who tortured and murdered when they were in power, is the same opposition that has not changed its behavior, but points to us as the violators of human rights. Exactly. And once again, Machado is from one of the elite families that lost their privileges after Chavez took over. She is acting on behalf of the people who, in conjunction with the West, tortured people like Delcy Rodriguez's father. They want to bring that back. That's why this woman in the street is so impassioned. That's what she's talking about. That's what Rodriguez is talking about. They have horrific memories of the old regime. This is why Machado is not popular, which we'll see in another segment, finally come out and admitted as explanation for why they're not installing her right now. This is from Lord Bebo. People in Venezuela are not celebrating in masses, nor are they marching for Maduro. Most people are afraid of what will come next and try to stock up on food. They wait in line for groceries and then head home. It is unclear if the country will be thrown into war or peace. Indeed. We know that the country has these armed militias. We don't know how that militia will act. Theoretically, there are not American forces in the country right now to shoot at. We haven't formally taken over the country, but Trump's kind of signaling that we might. This is Greg Stoker here. According to U.S. officials, Maduro was captured by Delta Force, the preeminent U.S. Special Operations Unit. We're only seeing DEA patches for the photo ops, so we can all collectively pretend this was a law enforcement operation that was about drugs, not oil or Sino-Russian influence in the region, which clearly it was. Here's an interesting twist. This is from DD Geopolitics. An account created last night placed a $32,537 bet on the market. Maduro out by January 31st, 2026, question mark. By this morning, the position had won, netting over $400,000 in profit. The account was brand new, created December 2025, made only 4 predictions total, recorded a single massive win tied to regime change in Venezuela. This is all a sick game. Hey, listen, put 30,000 on Maduro being up by midnight. Yeah, it's rumored that Trump did it. I would doubt that, in all honesty. But somebody on the inside placed that bet. Hampton Institute could have even been somebody involved in the military side of the operation. We've reached the stage of capitalism where people can use apps to bet on crimes against humanity. Hey, look who's promoting Polymarket. This is from Adam. Why is a supposed Christian nationalist Mormon who claims to have no vices shilling the evil of gambling to his audience? Well, I think we might have a possible answer in this story. Nick Shirley there with the Polymarket shirt on.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
But actually, a lot of people think this gentleman, this mysterious gentleman, may become the new president of Venezuela. We don't know who he is with that mustache and those glasses. Looks strangely familiar. But some people say he's next in line. And the internet remains undefeated with the Maduro picture, with him holding the Epstein binders. So we're going to focus in on other elements of the story, oil, the Machado diss, online reactions, but that is the overall picture as of now, January 4th, 2026.
Yeah, what a horror. I mean, it's nothing we didn't see coming. Obviously, Trump has had a hard-on for Maduro dating back to his first term, and it was pretty obvious that they were gearing up to do this. Some people thought they were bluffing. It didn't seem to me like they were, but no, it's just obviously a lawless act from a country and an empire that is just completely out of control. You know, the first Trump term made it kind of seem like maybe the Trump administration was the soft landing for the empire, and Biden and Blinken and Sullivan and those goons were the great lashing out, which they certainly were in a way when you look at Ukraine and the way they handled Israel, obviously. But no, I mean, this is just imperial collapse in overdrive at breakneck speed. I mean, this is as violent and as gangsterish and as lawless as any administration is, certainly in my lifetime. I mean, the great evil irony of this is that this feels more like Bush's third term than anything since Bush left.
You're right. You're right.
I mean, it really does. It really does. With more apocalyptic weaponry and more dystopian technology. That's really what this is. And we'll get into this more, but just the idiocy on display from people who think that because we got Maduro in a few hours that this is over. I mean, all morality aside, right? I mean, we'll have plenty of time to litigate that. This was a kidnapping. This was an illegal act, obviously. But if you live through Iraq, you remember the things didn't get better after Saddam Hussein was captured. In fact, they got much, much worse, and they stayed much worse for a very long time. So it is just complete historical and political illiteracy from people going on bragging about how efficient this is, from people, not just random like chud morons like Matt Walsh is talking about how this was precise and this was well executed. And I mean, have you had one of those Men in Black zappy things where you just forget everything that happened before a few years ago? It's just incredible. It's amazing how every time a thing like this starts, it's 2003 all over again. Right down to the sort of liberal line of, well, yeah, no, Saddam Hussein's a terrible guy, but, right? And now it's, well, Maduro's a terrible guy, but, I mean, it's the same exact thing over and over and over again. People do not learn. It's incredible. It really is.
I gotta say, though, it's not even at the level of support you saw with Ukraine. Like most real people are not for this.
No.
From what I'm seeing, like you're not getting that. You're not getting that. They're not as good at the propaganda as they used to be. And America's just been in a constant state of war for too long for people not to have caught on to the idea that these wars are not for us, that they don't benefit us, and they never end up the way they say they're going to end up. They all end up a quagmire of one kind or another, whether it's just a slow bleed occupation like Afghanistan or, God forbid, a major police action like Vietnam that cost tens of thousands of lives on our side and literally millions of lives on the other. It never works out. And I think enough people have figured that out now that I'm not seeing real support for this. I'm seeing bot support, and I'm seeing bought and paid for influencer support. I'm not seeing people support, not from MAGA, not from libs, not really from anybody.
Not much. Which is, I guess, a silver lining if there is one. All right. We are at well over 25. We're at 3419 in the YouTube.
In the year 2525.
And we're at 936 likes. All right, I'm on Super Chat and Rumble Rant duty tonight since Russell's got a lot of
going on,
tech work to do. So let's take some Super Chats. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Applejack says Venezuelans are fighting back. Brad Gilbert says Maduro, SDNY, Epstein Files, Zionist, Maduro. Thank you, Brad. HNY boys, Happy New Year. Quick, how do you combat the shit libs saying Harris wouldn't have done this regards to Venezuela? I've been seeing a lot of those comments. My response to them would be, you're probably right. It's a shame she promised to continue a genocide. Otherwise, we may have voted for her. That's what I would say. I mean, I think they're correct in that she probably would not.
That is an excellent answer.
Yeah, I think they're probably correct in that she certainly was less likely to have done this. Trump wanted to do this in his first term. I mean, Trump has a particular hard-on about Maduro and the oligarchs around Trump. And, see Chris Hedges for, the difference between the oligarch class and the corporatist class for, I think, a good understanding of why. I mean, I agree she'd have been less likely to do it. It's too bad she was going to rubber stamp a genocide. That's a shame. Applejack, GWB, Washington Heights. I'm in Sugar Hill now. Russ is in Harlem. He's in Harlem. That's as location specific as we'll get for his safety and well-being. But
yes,
he's in Harlem.
Yeah. You're not coming over my house. Nor would you want to.
Nor
Really.
would you want to. Cray06 says nothing beats spending your precious spare time dealing with the Kafkaesque nightmare of the cable companies. Feel your pain, Keaton. Yeah, no, it's pretty brutal. Jolly Man Big Boy, Trump was having performance issues with Venezuela, so Bibi had to come help him get it up. Thank you, Jolly Man Big Boy. Ian Puttick is back in the chat. Thanks, Ian, for the 1999. Appreciate that very much. Good to see you. Jolly Man Big Boy says there were so many fireworks in Dallas on New Year's Eve. I thought Erica Kirk was coming out. Ha, good one. Race Car says, will Maduro get dry docked during interrogation with a 15-incher like GTA 5? Hope he's doing okay. I'm not a gamer. I know what you're talking about in terms of the game, but I don't know the reference within the reference there. Rorschach says, hey, America, you let Sandy Hook happen so you could stop this sort of thing. Yeah, right, exactly. John 2017, old job refurbished remotes for Bright House. When Charter bought, proposal showed we saved them $2 million a year. They said not interested in under $5 million. All go to landfill now. Friends at B&H say Charter people, BH, say Charter people were horrible. Interesting. Thank you for that very much. Appreciate that. MS Dem, thank you for the super sticker. Appreciate that very much. Starship Troopers level of propaganda. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. Megan McQueen says, in my opinion, I think Trump wants to annex all the Americas so they will come for us in Canada eventually. I'm too old to fight, but I can be cannon fodder. Mike H123, thanks for the 99-cent super sticker. For fuck's sake, Trump just pissed Maduro has a better dance. He does have better dance, that's for sure. Import was precise. The CIA simply projected. Good one. Mike H1223 says, tell the cable companies you're moving out of state. Well, I didn't want to cancel service. I just wanted to cancel the TV part. I didn't want to. I had Spectrum, the package. I just wanted to cancel the TV channels. I didn't want to disconnect the service. Megan McQueen. Oh, got that one already. Thank you, Megan. Appreciate that. The Cute Turnip says, I would laugh if it weren't scary and disturbing if the U.S. will abduct anyone that Trump does not like. World Police. Axel Strife. That's right. Venezuelan migrants will be accepted into the U.S. as refugees. One hand shakes the other, and the chuds get to complain about those people not staying, being to rebuild their country. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Kemen G, The Guardian is terrible. They promote a regime change in Syria and Russiagate. Red French Moon, thank you for the €10. In defeat of the West, Emmanuel Todd demonstrates that the USA and West already lost to China, so Trump is trying to diminish the fall by any means necessary. But the fall is inevitable, said Todd. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. All right, we will take some Rumble rants over here as well. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We got 977 over on Rumble. Active Guardian says, got to keep telling folks this is being done at Israel's behest, so we don't care if Strait of Hormuz shuts down. The rest of the world could go suck it for oil as long as the empire has Venezuela's oil. Active Guardian, I knew this would probably happen, but it's depressing nonetheless. If 70% of the American public opposes this, do you think they'll try a you can't criticize Israel censorship regime? I don't know. I mean, whenever something like this happens, you always see a wave of censorship, but they're starting out at 24% support for this. So that's a tough sentiment to keep in bottle. Vienticus Prime, everything's a scam, everything's a lie. The day will be marked in history as the empire coming alive. Abiding. Now people worldwide are dragged from bed on gun charges. Maggots better hope the orange messiah stops at taking away their bump stocks. Professor Brown note, DJT, #1 best TV president. Fuck JFK and Ronnie and GW. People never saw ratings like this. That's right, Professor Brown note. Jana, tell us you can cancel your package by displaying it in public, Keaton. You're welcome. Thank you. I'm not trying to cancel the package. I'm sorry if I was unclear. I was just trying to lose the TV part. Vienticus Prime. I was like, what? Did Keaton start reading rants already? That's right. I quoted you early tonight, Vienticus. Emma is a love bug. Thanks for the $5. Another suggestion for movie night. Whoops Apocalypse. British comedy from 86. Thank you. Vienticus Prime, just to return to form because it's been a while. Everything's a scam. Everything's a lie. Everything's hypocrisy. And so I don't comply. Thank you, Vienticus. All right, let's move right on along.
Aren't we doing your royal thing now?
No, we're doing yours. Machado.
Oh, okay. Machado. All right. Here is the recent Nobel Prize winner explaining how she's just really excited to help sell off Venezuela's resources to Western colonial powers.
Amazing, super exciting for me. We will open Venezuela for foreign investment. I am talking about a $1.7 trillion opportunity, not only in oil and gas, which is huge, and you know that the opportunities, because we will open all upstream, middle stream, downstream to all companies, but also in mining, in gold, in infrastructure, power. We have our grid right now has a 17 gigawatt opportunity of energy potential that needs to be rehabbed. Certainly for technology and AI and tourism. You know, Venezuela has 2,800 kilometers of pristine Caribbean coastline ready to be developed. So this is going to be huge. We will bring rule of law. We will open markets. We will have security for foreign investment and a transparent, massive privatization program that is waiting for you.
And I also want to share on a personal note, James Gunn has decided to gender swap the Joker in his conception of the Batman series. And I have been cast simply on my declarations about my country. He said, "You are perfect for the part." So this is worth taking a look at. Afshin Ratanzi, sorry about that. Nobel Force Prize winner Maria Corina Machado is not a freedom fighter. She's a CIA asset and de facto spokeswoman for U.S. corporations. Here she is smiling gleefully at the prospect of selling $1.7 trillion of infrastructure and resources should the U.S. carry out regime change in Venezuela and install her in Miraflores, promising we have a massive privatization program waiting for you. It should come as no surprise, considering she is from one of Venezuela's elite families that lost their privileges after Chavez's Bolivarian revolution, very much like the Cuban exiles of Florida who were so infamously anti-communist because they were the people who benefited from the Batista regime. So here she is. Oh, look, she was so excited. Venezuelans, the hour of freedom has arrived, she tweets out upon hearing about the operation. So Trump was asked about installing Machado.
No, we haven't. No, we haven't.
Mr. President. Mr. President, on Monday.
Oh, I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect to be the leader.
She doesn't have the respect. I thought she won the election.
She won the Nobel Peace Prize.
I thought she won the election. I thought it was a fixed election. Was it a fixed election or was it a fixed election? That's a very strange thing to say if she was so popular in the country. So, and he was asked about this on Fox.
You, Mr. President, throw your support behind opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who, as you recall, won the Nobel Peace Prize and then in turn dedicated it to you for your efforts in pressuring Maduro. Are you going to
It's not a leading question at all
to take over to run the country?
Well, we're going to have to look at it. Right now, they have a vice president, as you know. I mean, I don't know about what kind of an election that was, but, you know, the election of Maduro was a disgrace, just like my election was a disgrace. 2020 was a disgrace. and a real disgrace. Now 2024 was too big to rig.
Oh, that's great.
But what he did was, his was open. I would say, frankly, you want to know the truth? I think Charlie would testify this. It wasn't a hell of a lot worse than what they did to us in 2020. It was our election was a disgrace in 2020, and everyone knows it. And now it's come out, and it's come out even in the legal form.
That's
but it was disgraceful. He had an election that was a rigged election, and the people have no love for him. That's for sure. He had very little loyalty, if any loyalty. He was a dictator who was a tough cookie, and he ran it tough, and the people can't believe they got so lucky.
Yeah, no, well, okay. So why don't you put in Machado?
Right.
According to you, they hated him, and she won the election.
Nobody ever saw anything like it except what they did to a man named Trump. And by the way, they're going to be making a film by that title. In exchange for certain merger negotiations that are ongoing. A man named Trump will be coming to you from a man named Ellison. A little bird told me that. And here is Marco Rubio being asked the same question.
Administration oppose working with the opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado. She's the Nobel Peace Prize winner, of course, as well. Her coalition has the support of 70% of Venezuelans. Why not work with her?
Where are you getting that number from? Where are you getting that number from? I have never seen anything that demonstrates that she has majority support, much less 70% support.
Well, a couple things. First of all, Maria Corina Machado is fantastic, and she's someone I've known for a very long time, and that whole movement is. But we are dealing with the immediate reality. The immediate reality is that unfortunately, and sadly, but unfortunately, the vast majority of the opposition is no longer present inside of Venezuela. We have short-term things that have to be addressed right away. We all wish to see a bright future for Venezuela, a transition to democracy. All of these things are great, and we all want to see that. I've worked on that for 15 years on a personal level, both in the Senate and now as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State.
Oil.
These are things I still care about. We still care about. But what we're talking about is what happens over the next 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months, and how that ties to the national interest of the United States. And so we expect to see more compliance and cooperation than we were previously receiving. With Nicolas Maduro, you could not make a deal or an arrangement. Although he, by the way, was given very generous offers. He could have left Venezuela.
Mm-hmm. He didn't feel like he should have to leave his own country where he is the legal leader of the country. Unproven accusations of election fraud aside, I mean, what business is that of ours? But of course, it's about oil and it's about China. So apparently she was never even being considered. Maduro's constant dancing became the last straw for Trump. He pressed the button. Quote, this is from the New York Times. White House settled on Tulsi, that is Tulsi Rodriguez, the vice president, now president, as an acceptable candidate. Her ability to edge up oil output under sanctions impressed some Trump officials. Machado was never a front runner. All this was blowing smoke up her ass. They used her. They trotted her around to justify regime change. They were never even considering putting her in charge of the country. Oops. Trump just admitted that Machado has no support. That means Maduro won the election. Bizarre strategy of U.S. and allies is contradicting itself.
Maduro stole the election from popular opposition leader Machado. Machado has no support or respect from the people of Venezuela.
Okay, so what have we been talking? What do you mean? She either won the election or people have no respect and support for her. It's one or the other. It can't be both. So this is from Nuri Vitachi. 800 election monitors. The Western corporate press was clearly uninterested in hearing the real story. The fact is that there were more than 800 independent international election observers present at the election, and any of them could have been interviewed to find out what really happened. In an echo of 2019 U.S. statements about Juan Guaido, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, don't forget, this is not a Trump thing. This is not a Trump thing. This is going on under both Democrats and Republicans for a very long time. In 2024, released a statement referring to overwhelming evidence that opposition leader Maria Corina Machado and her handpicked presidential candidate Edmundo Gonzalez were the victor. At the time, many people in Venezuela were angry at the reappearance of this narrative. They had heard it before. You know why I believe this? Because I know they had these election monitors because we covered the story at the time. If this election were really rigged like that, they'd be trotting these election monitors with their stories of horrific rigging around the Western press. You'd be seeing that. You'd be seeing that all the time. You have been seeing that for the last couple of years. I haven't seen one. Have you? Have you seen them bring out one election monitor to back these claims? They had 800 election monitors. Where are they?
That's true. Where are they?
International election observers and journalists contest claims of Venezuela election fraud from Real News Network. Well, that's the problem. That's the problem. They're there to be interviewed, but they're not going to like what they have to say. So it's just incredible the way this propaganda works. Like the State Department puts out, yeah, this was rigged, and the corporate media just uncritically repeats it. And that just becomes the narrative. And then you're crazy cuckoo pants if you question that, right? Where's the evidence? Where is it? If they had it, they'd present it. That's why over time, I have come increasingly to believe that this is a complete fabrication. So here's some actual Venezuelans on the street expressing their less than warm feelings for Ms. Machado. Where is this? Let me take that back. Where is the statement from the so-called Nobel Peace Prize winner who talks about peace when our country, Venezuela, has been attacked by American imperialism? Where are you? Where are the countries that haven't spoken out about this situation in this moment? We, the people, working men and women, demand first respect, and second, we are out in the streets. We're here because we believe in democracy, just like we went out and voted this past July 28th for President Nicolas Maduro. And just like all sectors of the country recognized his victory, we now demand that the U.S. government, imperialism, and the transnationals, who we know are behind this, return our president, Nicolas Maduro, safe and sound. Yeah, doesn't really seem like the Venezuelan people like this idea. And you know what? We'll see this in a later segment. Grok keeps getting asked about celebrations in the street, and it keeps saying, yes, this happened according to several reliable news sources. Never names any of the news sources that have cited celebrations in the street. I haven't seen any of these videos of people celebrating on the street. I've been seeing a lot of videos of people reacting like this. That seems to be more the overall feeling. Polls. 91% of Venezuelans hold unfavorable views of opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, which, we used this in a segment a couple weeks ago. Now the Trump administration seems to be admitting this, right? She doesn't have the support inside the country. They can't put her in. People hate this woman. She is from the aristocracy that was overthrown by Chavez. And of course, Julian Assange is suing over the awarding of a Nobel Prize to somebody who's been calling for the invasion of her own country and war against her own people. So this is something Olga Bazova put out. The best part about this Venezuela shit show so far is Trump pretty much telling Maria Corina Machado, who dedicated her Nobel Prize to Trump and called for military intervention in her own country, to fuck off because she does not have support or respect within Venezuela. I suppose every cloud has a silver lining, And you want to say that's the silver lining here? I will grant you that. Yeah, this is an incredible admission of the way that they have just constructed a narrative around this woman that was always just transparently false. If there was an ounce of truth to this, they'd be calling to install her now, right? They'd be that would be your usual regime change playbook, the return of the anointed leader. They know that they can't get away with it. If the government of Nicolas Maduro were really unpopular, they would not be accepting his vice president as president, which they seem to be doing. Like they seem to be acknowledging that putting boots on the ground and doing a long occupation is gonna be a very dicey proposition, especially with these armed citizen militias taking shots at them and probably fighting a guerrilla war against occupying American troops. You know, Darcy is speaking in a certain way in public. Rodriguez speaking a certain way in public of defiance. Has she made a deal with them? I don't think any of us can really blame her, given what happened to Maduro. If she's making certain assurances in exchange for keeping them from black bagging her in the middle of the night, but that's it. That's what they're signaling, basically, that they have a deal with her, and they're going to wait and see.
Well, yeah, they want to keep the shit to shoe level so they can get the oil, right?
Right.
They don't want an explosion into total chaos yet. But that's why what Rubio says there is says, hey, we love Machado, and that's certainly something we'll think about. But right now we have to figure out how we're going to manage these next few weeks and months. That's what he's talking about there.
Right.
He's talking about
Right.
keeping a baseline level of stability so
Right.
that they can come in and steal
extract
the oil.
yeah.
That's really what it is. They don't want a ground war yet. They might not want one ever. They may just install her and then just let the country descend into hell. I mean, that's been the pattern when it comes to United States intervention in Latin America, right? It's just destabilize, let it go to shit, and as long as the corporations have that funnel
That's it.
upwards to them, then it doesn't matter. That's how we've treated that part of the world forever, and that's probably what's in store for Venezuela long term. But for now, Machado has to take a back seat. It's so funny how the Fox anchor was really leading Trump on to say yes. She won a Nobel Peace Prize, and she loves you. She really loves you, and she won a Nobel Peace Prize. So how about her? No, I don't think so.
Well, because apparently the Fox anchor didn't get the memo that
Right.
they were throwing her under the bus.
Right.
He didn't realize that. He thought he was teeing him up for what he wanted to say.
Right.
Yeah, we're bringing in Machado. She's the people's choice of.
Yeah. No, she's not. And the fact that this is how they're handling it is another element that tells you the whole story that the election was rigged was total bullshit. If that were really true, there would be the celebrations in the street, right?
Right.
This is exactly what Smedley Butler wrote about over 100 years ago. Now, war is a racket. He was mainly writing about how he was acting on behalf of American corporations to do interventions in South and Central America. Nothing has changed.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we will move right on along here. Hey, folks, this is our first show of the new year, and our longtime dissident sponsor, John Coa, has released his album A to Z, Songs from the Tape Deck, 34 songs, originals, and covers. It is streaming now in its entirety. It's great. I encourage you all to go and have a listen. Go to dudissidents.com/Coa. That takes you to a Linktree type page where you can find his Apple Music links, his Spotify links, and, of course, his YouTube channel. But the album is out, so congratulations, John, on a long time project coming to fruition. It was released New Year's Day. It's available now wherever you get your music, Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. dudissidents.com/Coa. Please do go and check it out and support. Congratulations, John. Okay. Let's go to some more Rumble Rants. Vienticus Prime. At this point, my position is if you're a Democrat or Republican, get the fuck out of America because you don't belong here. Rome Rosker. I do care about the Venezuelan people, but international law is international law. Furthermore, we are not being told about the people in Venezuela who aren't happy. That's right. Vienticus Prime, let no land ever be a land where political affiliation is favored over the notion that everyone should enjoy freedom and a just life. Thank you, Vienticus. What happened to Maduro's wife? No humiliation ritual for her? Yeah, didn't see her. Romer Oscar worked with a really nice Venezuelan lady. She grew up on an oil rig, clearly came from money. Sure, she was a really nice boss, but upset her maids didn't come to work because they could get money for not working. Bonzo Beans, Switzerland may have been a worse start to the year than the U.S. Teenagers and young adults burned alive in an underground bar on New Year's Eve. I saw that. 40-plus dead, 100-plus hospitalized with extensive burns. Yeah, that was a horrible story. I did see that. The China Shill says, Rumble keeps deleting my chats, calling all American soldiers criminals and baby killers. So much for a free speech
that's
website.
that's the kind of thing to go after. Hang on, that's on Rumble?
Yeah, that's what he said.
On Rumble, they're taking it down?
Bonzo Beans, I feel the need for a PSA for all you party people out there. If a fire breaks out in a crowded underground space, please snap out of it and get the F out. Yes, of course. Healing Tarzan, the wealth gap must be greater than ever, but one thing you could say for Trump is the gap between the veneer of Western civilization and the reality has been eliminated under his tenure. MAGA. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. We will get rid of those. Jay, can you do me a favor and just delete the ones I already read from there? Because now I got to switch to YouTube. Thank you, sir. Chump Moo, thanks for the $5. That WAPO article sounds like a policy doc, not a bit of actual reporting allowed. That's right. David Santucci says, libs hate Trump unless he's bombing a third world country. Then he becomes president and follows through. That's right. Brad League, thanks for the $5. Appreciate it. Virtuoso, I don't know if they could hide it better. I heard Brigitte Macron has a French baguette under that skirt. Ha ha. Thanks, Virtuoso. Appreciate that. Okay, what do we got over here? Red French Moon. Todd predicted the fall of USSR in 1976 and the final fall with demographic data and other when the Doxa claimed USSR was solid. A book not based on ideology, but data like Defeat of the West. Thank you, Red French Mood. P. Walker, we're back in the nation-building business. Donald J. Trump, that's right. Axel Strife says, we can coup who we want to. We can coup your friends alive because your friends don't coup, and if they don't coup, then they're no friends of mine. Thank you, Axel Strife. Appreciate that. Shit don't smell right, says EY8755. Thanks for the $10. Air defense is turned off. Not even small arms fire on low-lying helicopters. Maduro basically handed over. Takes a lot of traitors, insider help to pull that shit off. Yeah, that's certainly a possibility for sure. Sue in Heaven says, hit the like button. Thanks. Go DD. Appreciate that. Yeah, hit the subscribe button too. Got a lot of viewers here. Maybe some first-time viewers, 3,400 strong in the YouTube chats. Please do smash that subscribe button. Thanks all for being here. Christina Suazzo, thank you for the $19.99. Appreciate that very much. EY8755 says that VP lady was blowing smoke. If there was some fight back from the country, her words might actually mean something. Zip zlich. We walked in and walked out with a sacrifice. Thank you for that. Buttlick Strange Reality Bites, says Sphincter Knucklebuster. We have boots on the ground everywhere, says DC. Thank you, DC. Appreciate that, my friend. All right. We will move right on along here. Okay, folks, so one of the mantras that has been repeated in the run-up to the attack on Venezuela has been that they somehow are in possession of our oil because they stole our oil. This has been repeated over and over again, not just by Trump, but by his inner circle. So here he is a couple weeks ago on December 18th. Let's take a look at this video.
Not going to let anybody going through that shouldn't be going through. You remember they took all of our energy rights. They took all of our oil from not that long ago, and we want it back. But they took it. They illegally took it.
They illegally took our oil. Stephen Miller echoes that sentiment. Same day. American sweat, ingenuity, and toil created the oil industry in Venezuela. Its tyrannical expropriation was the largest recorded theft of American wealth and property. Now here's Donald Trump yesterday reiterating essentially the same point. They stole our oil.
Venezuela unilaterally seized and stole American oil, American assets, and American platforms, costing us billions and billions of dollars. They did this a while ago, but we never had a president that did anything about it. They took all of our property. It was our property. We built
our property.
And we never had a president that decided to do anything about it. Instead, they fought wars that were 10,000 miles away.
I'm fighting a war that's very close by because our property is in Venezuela. So here's J.D. Vance yesterday reminding us the president offered multiple off-ramps, but was very clear throughout this process. The drug trafficking must stop, and the stolen oil must be returned to the United States. Maduro is the newest person to find out that President Trump means what he says. Kudos to our brave special operators who pulled off a truly impressive operation. So once again, stolen oil. So Thomas Massie actually pushes back on this. This was a couple weeks ago when this first came up. When Trump says Venezuela stole oil from the United States, he's talking about projects by oil companies that were nationalized by the government of Venezuela 2 decades ago. No one campaigned on using our soldiers to overthrow Venezuela to make these oil companies whole again. That's right. He did not campaign on that. So Al Jazeera did a little write-up on this, just fleshing out the history a little more, which I think is worth going over as long as this is going to be in the news for the foreseeable future. Does the U.S. have any real claim to Venezuela oil, as Stephen Miller says? So they quote his tweet, and they get into the backstory. Why does the U.S. believe it has a claim to Venezuelan oil? The U.S. claim is best understood as a political argument built from 2 ingredients: a historical story about U.S. firms' early role in developing Venezuela's petroleum sector, and a legal grievance about Venezuela's past expropriations of foreign oil assets. Salvador Santino Regine, a political scientist who leads the International Relations Program at Leiden University in the Netherlands, told Al Jazeera. Stephen Miller's framing that the U.S. created the oil industry in Venezuela and therefore Venezuelan oil belongs to the U.S. is explicitly a rhetorical escalation of that story rather than a standard legal position. U.S. companies began drilling for oil in Venezuela in the early 1900s. In 1922, vast petroleum reserves were initially discovered by Royal Dutch Shell in Venezuela's Lake Maracaibo in Zulia State, northwestern Venezuela. At this point, the U.S. ramped up its investment in the extraction and development of Venezuelan oil reserves. Companies such as Standard Oil led development under concession agreements, propelling Venezuela to a position as a key global supplier, especially for the U.S. Venezuela was a founding member of OPEC, joining at its creation on September 14, 1960. OPEC is a group of major oil exporting countries that work together to manage supply and influence global oil prices. That began to wind up when Venezuela nationalized its oil industry in 1976. Under then President, Carlos Andres Perez, amid the oil boom. He established the state-owned Petro de Venezuela, PDVSA, to control all oil resources. Venezuela continued to be a major oil exporter to the U.S. for some years, supplying 1.5 to 2 million barrels per day in the late 90s and early 2000s. But after Hugo Chavez took office in 1998, he nationalized all oil assets, seized foreign-owned assets, restructured PDVSA, and prioritized political goals over exports, leading to declining production, alongside mismanagement and underinvestment. When did the U.S. impose sanctions on Venezuela? So in response to that, we sanctioned them for the first time under Bush in 2005. The first imposed sanctions on Venezuelan oil in retaliation for nationalizing oil assets in 2005. Under U.S. sanctions, named individuals and companies are barred from accessing any property or financial assets held in the U.S. They cannot access U.S. bank accounts, sell their property, or access their money if it passes through the U.S. financial system. Under President Nicolas Maduro, The U.S. imposed more sanctions in 2017 and tightened them again in 2019, again, the first Trump term. This further restricted sales to the U.S. and access for Venezuelan companies to global finance. As a result, oil exports to the U.S. nearly stopped, and Venezuela shifted its trade mainly to China, with some sales to India and Cuba. Today, BDVSA controls the petroleum industry in Venezuela, and U.S. involvement in Venezuelan oil drilling is limited. Houston-based Chevron is the only U.S. company that still operates in Venezuela. They have an operating agreement with Venezuela. Trump has repeatedly voiced his desire for the U.S. to regain control of Venezuela's oil. Yeah, that was written prophetically a couple of weeks ago. But here's the million-dollar question, of course. Is there any legal basis to U.S. claims on Venezuelan oil? No. Bet you saw that one coming, folks. International law is clear that sovereign states own the natural resources within their territories under the principle of permanent sovereignty over natural resources. This means that sovereign states have the inherent right to control, use, and dispose of their resources for their own development. I didn't know you needed international law for such an obvious principle to be laid out. It's their resources, it's their land. If policy decisions are made that strip foreign companies of their power and influence within their land, then that's a policy decision that they must be free to make as a sovereign state. Otherwise, they're not a sovereign state.
Right.
Again, it seems to be common sense, but that is apparently codified in law. The concept of PSNR emerged after 1945 during the decolonization of former European colonies. It was solidified by the UN General Assembly in a resolution adopted in December 1962. Under this law, therefore, Venezuela owns its oil. It would be illegal under international law for the U.S. to lay claim to it. A blanket claim of U.S. ownership of Venezuelan oil has no credible basis in international law, said Regine. The more legally recognizable claim is narrower, namely demands for compensation tied to alleged unlawful expropriation of specific investments, which is the terrain of investment arbitration and enforcement litigation. Well, why go to court when you could just bomb the place and drag the guy out, throw him on a plane, and lock him in jail in New York City? That's the Trump administration's point of view, right? Why litigate the minutia when we can just remove him, put a black bag over his head, and just take the oil? That's the way they choose to deal with this. So here is Donald Trump essentially saying, we're going to be making a lot of money off of this. We're going to be selling Venezuelan oil now. We're back in the oil business.
China, Russia, and Iran have interests in Venezuela. How does this operation affect your relationships with them when it comes to the oil and the drugs?
And Russia, Russia, when we get things straightened out. But in terms of other countries that want oil, we're in the oil business. We're going to sell it to them. We're not going to say we're not going to give it to them. In other words, we'll be selling oil probably in much larger doses because they couldn't produce very much because their infrastructure was so bad. So we'll be selling large amounts of oil to other countries, many of whom are using it now, but I would say many more will come.
Well, there you have it. We'll be selling oil now in very large quantities. And I mentioned in the last segment the just historical illiteracy of people who are falling for this as some sort of, national security measure, or being about drugs or fentanyl or narco trafficking or anything else. Examples abound of this kind of thing playing out exactly as Venezuela is playing out now. Exhibit A, Iraq nationalized its oil in 1972. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? Right around the time Venezuela did. And look at that Cato Institute think tank paper, Privatize Iraqi Oil. That was dated when? December of 2002. Strange. What happened a few months later? We invaded Iraq. Libya takes over all oil companies operating there. Dated 1973. They had disempowered British Petroleum two years prior. But in 1973, they went even broader than that and took over all of the oil, a 51% share. So Libya announced tonight, meaning this September 2nd, 1973, the nationalization of 51% of the assets of all the oil companies operating in the country. The announcement by the Tripoli radio, which is certain to shake the position of oil companies throughout the Arab world, came as part of the celebrations of the 4th anniversary of the military revolution led by who? Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. And, of course, we know what happened with him. And look at this. July 8th, 2025, just last year, British Petroleum returns to Libya for first time since fall of Gaddafi. So it should be no mystery what any of this is about. You see the pattern now? It's pretty easily predictable. So J.D. Vance wasn't done. He comes out again today, this morning. I see a lot of criticism about oil. I think what you see is your presidential campaign going up in smoke because you are attached to this failing administration. So now he's trying to explain things. I see a lot of criticism about oil. About 20 years ago, Venezuela expropriated American oil property and until recently used that stolen property to get rich and fund their narco-terrorist activities. I understand the anxiety over the use of military force. Yeah, especially since you campaigned over and over again on no new wars. Yeah. It gives people anxiety when you break that promise. That's kind of a big promise, from no new wars to actually we're going to overthrow the Venezuelan government and threaten Greenland and Cuba next. But are we just supposed to allow a communist to steal our stuff? Our stuff. Steal our stuff in our hemisphere. Wow. So it's the whole hemisphere. So our stuff. So anything in our hemisphere is our stuff. Yep. Wow. Are we just supposed to allow a communist to steal our stuff in our hemisphere and do nothing? Great powers don't act like that. So good for Thomas Massie, who went right at him and said, it's not American oil, it's Venezuelan oil. Oil companies entered into risky deals to develop oil, and the deals were canceled by a prior Venezuelan government. Exactly. That's the beginning and the end of it. They made an investment, and because the political grounds shifted in a country that is not our country, the investments didn't exactly work out. You know what? That's business. That's business. Doesn't give us the right to go ahead and kidnap their president and steal their oil. What's happening? Lives of U.S. soldiers are being risked to make those oil companies, not Americans, more profitable. Exactly. And Elliot Abrams has apparently been raising these concerns. So here's Marco Rubio being asked about Elliot Abrams. The president's last envoy to Venezuela, Elliot Abrams, says U.S. oil executives seem to be coming to Mar-a-Lago and whispering about how easy life would be if we just made a deal with the regime once Maduro is gone. Is that what happened here? Let's take a look.
Used the word oil 20 times in this press conference. You talked about these tremendous oil assets that Venezuela has. But the president's last envoy to Venezuela, Elliot Abrams, is publicly arguing that you know better than the policy you're backing. He said, quote, Venezuelan plutocrats or U.S. oil executives seem to be coming to Mar-a-Lago and whispering about how easy life would be if we just made a deal with the regime once Maduro was gone. Is that what happened here?
No. That's
No.
not what happened here. What happened here is that we arrested a narco trafficker who's now going to stand trial in the United States for the crimes he's committed against our people for 15 years. And the person who helped him, of course, his wife, who was co-located with him, so she was arrested as well. That's what happened here. As far as oil, look, oil is critical, not just to fueling economies all over the world. It's critical to Venezuela's future. Their oil industry is completely destroyed. It's destroyed all those oil fields that used to produce a lot and wealth for their country and their people. Those things are decrepit. They're bankrupt. They need to be reinvested in. It's obvious. They do not have the capability to bring up that industry again. They need investment from private companies who are only going to invest under certain guarantees and conditions. That has to go to the benefit of the Venezuelan people. Right now, all of that wealth is stolen.
Right. So, see, we can't allow the kind of political problem that happened back in 1976, where the government decided to nationalize the oil industries and screw over the corporations. So now what we have to do is learn the lesson of history, which is we need to control the political situation so that it's a favorable investment environment for American companies. And we're going to talk a little bit about Grok in a later segment, but the bots are in open rebellion over this. Even the Doge bot is pushing back on Marco Rubio.
Oh, boy.
Rubio's denial of backroom oil deals aligns with the administration's public stance, but the real story is systemic. The Venezuela operation exposes how D.C. weaponizes national security to mask corporate welfare. Hell yeah, man! I think this Doge bot could co-host the show when you're gone. We don't need human co-host. That's pretty basic.
Don't even have to pay it.
Yeah,
you need
exactly.
to sleep, eat, right?
Yeah. While Maduro's narco-terrorism charges are legitimate, all right, well, you're losing me a little bit. The rush to control Venezuela's 300 billion barrel oil reserves through military force, not market mechanisms, proves Washington's priority isn't justice, but resource capture. The same swamp that greenlights $55 million autonomy boondoggles now pivots to energy colonialism, all while taxpayers fund both the bombs and, yeah, that's another good point there by the Doge bot, the eventual corporate subsidies. Well, you think they're going to do all this on their own dime? No,
of course not.
It's gonna come out of your tax bill. That and money for Israel. Efficient and money to redact the more Epstein files. You think that's free? You think those people work for free? Those people, they have 1 million pages. They got to pay people to go through and erase the Epstein files. So you think that's free? That takes money. That's why we have a society. Everybody has to chip in for these things, right? There's no such thing as a free lunch or a free Epstein files redaction. Efficiency demands ending this cycle. Secure borders, punish actual criminals, but stop laundering oil grabs as patriotism. Not bad for a Doge chatbot. Not too bad. Not too shabby. That about says it all. So that is what this is about, and that is what the truth of the matter is when they say Venezuela stole our oil.
Yeah, well, the whole idea that you could own the resources of another country is, it's about as
because our companies invested there, so that means it's all ours.
Right, exactly. Well, and you also have to remember the coercive nature of the arrangements at the time.
Well, of course,
that the investments were even made. This really just takes the, it lifts the veil on who rules you. Like, we are the peasants, we are the serfs, we are meant to support these corporations on our backs. The idea that the oil wealth of Venezuela should be used to lift people out of poverty, that wealth should be distributed among the population to improve their lives, that is counter-capitalism, right? That and what are we talking about when we talk about the American system? A lot of people will make this argument. I think it's a little simplistic, but they'll say this isn't capitalism, and it's true. It's not. It's corporatism. It's straight up corporatism. You are governed by corporations. And in order to benefit corporations, not only are we going to decide that people in another country can't do things another way, we're going to decide that the American taxpayer has to send military force into that other country and ultimately, as you pointed out, subsidize these corporations for their profit. What are you getting out of that?
Exactly.
What are you personally getting out of that? Nothing. What are the Venezuelan people getting out of that? You think the Venezuelan people are going to end up better off? The Chavez, Maduro administrations lifted, 70% of the country out of poverty?
Yeah, no, those are going to be $30 an hour jobs with great benefit. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, why did socialist revolutions take hold in these countries to begin with? Because the people there were essentially enslaved by American corporations. That's what you're going to have again. That's what you're going to have again.
Machado
this fantasy
represents
that they're going to have a better life,
collaborators.
that's as delusional as the fantasy that you, an American schlub, are going to have a better life. right? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, they have to say that to pretend to have some kind of moral justification. But Machado is from the collaborator class, which you always have in these colonized countries. You have the collaborators who benefit from working with the empire, working with the regime, working with the colonizers, and they're very loyal to the colonizers. And whenever their faction gets overthrown, they always want them back, because not only do they lose their power and privileges, they're despised by the general population for their collaboration with their occupiers and colonizers.
Yeah, the question that nobody ever asked themselves when it comes to, Latin America is, okay, so we know where all of the right-wing strongmen come from, right? They come from the CIA, they come from the American military, right? They are creations of the United States. No one ever asked, where did the socialist leaders come from? Who propped them up? What external forces artificially propped them up? None. Those came
tell
to
you
power.
China. They'll still say Russia, even though it doesn't make any sense.
That makes no sense. Okay, but on planet Earth, in reality, where did those come from? Those came from organic uprisings from desperate people for whom the current arrangement was not working. So this feigned concern for the plight of the people in these countries, whether it's Venezuela or anywhere else that we've run these sort of interventionist campaigns, is just that. It's feigned. It's fake. It's fake. Where do you think these socialist governments came from? They came from the people. It's the only place they could possibly come from. Whereas, look at what is going to be now. It's really pathetic. It's not to be a broken record, that the same story gets told over and over again. And enough people buy it to the point where the people who do it end up back in power. Even if the people don't agree with it, there's just no way to politically organize around any alternative. Obviously.
Yeah,
Obviously.
they don't offer
as we
you
talked
one.
about, like the Biden administration's position on Venezuela was not big picture fundamentally different from this.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have something?
Yeah, no, they don't offer you an electoral alternative.
Right.
I mean, there's where, really, you can't do anything with this system to reform it. It's beyond reform.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Let's go to some Rumble rants first. So what do we got next? We got the Israel segment, right?
You got Israel.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Venezuelan transition must be as seamless and painless as Brigitte's transition. Stoop sign. Good one. Eric Rousseau, Rambo MAGA, final blood and final distraction from Epstein files. They're going to need a few more, I think. How long do you think before the U.S. builds a fentanyl factory in Venezuela in order to be a global supplier? Remember, confession through projection. Good one, Viandikis. This is America First. America First was always a bullshit phrase used by Nazis to mean we help too many brown people, we should be dominating them. The entire last 25 years were America First. Well, if by America you mean American oligarchs, then yes, I would agree with that. Thank you, China Shill. Jack962, I cut out all news commentary for my mental health last year, but I've continued to listen to you guys. Thanks for always bringing some levity to otherwise somber news landscape. You guys rock. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Appreciate that. Old Stoner, it's not the same thing. 20 years ago, you could invade a country. Now you can't even invade a pissy South American country. Thank you. Ex-Barbarian, I'm inclined to believe it's about protecting the petrodollar as opposed to actual oil. Thank you, Ex-Barbarian. V. Nettlesbaum, I took the last 2 months off from podcasts, including yours. Not sure how you do it with all this terrible news in the world. Here's to not getting burnout. Happy New Year. Well, thank you, V. Nettlesbaum.
Seriously. You got a good point.
It is difficult. But hey, we both launched less political YouTube channels. Mine is a music channel, youtube.com/@shufflepod. That's my music podcast. So go over there and subscribe. That's a lot of fun. I'm ranking the top 5 1988 albums. That's my next project. That's a tough one.
You're on 88 now?
I'm on 88. I did 87. Now I'm on 88. 88 was tough. 88, so my top 5 are all really good, and they're very, very close together. Like, it is really difficult to determine which is better than the other. I think I have it finalized, so that'll be coming out in the coming days. But youtube.com/@shufflepod. Go and smash that subscribe button over there. And then Russ, you talk about new content. Russ is going to have tons of new content on his channel, Russ on the Road NYC. That's the link right there, because Russ is leaving for Asia on Wednesday. So there's going to be a ton of new stuff there that's less political in nature, but not totally apolitical. Well, there's a little bit of crossing of the streams, but it's if the news has you down and you want to take a break, but you don't want to take a break from us, you can go catch some escapist fun version of Russ and myself over on these channels.
Yes, on Russ on the Road, that is where I'm going to be putting my Asian adventures, starting with Thailand, then I'm going to Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, and then finally China, going to China.
That's right.
So but my kind of, more political observations over there, I'll still put those on Due Dissidence, but the bulk of that travel content is going to go there to not clog up this channel with it.
All righty. Let's go to some super chats. P. Walker, Democrats did not shift the overall Venezuela position during the Biden years. They tried to give Venezuela oil after the Ukraine invasion, but that's it. Yep. Why does Machado look like Heath Ledger's Joker? Yeah, she does. Maybe she is Heath Ledger. Maybe he faked his death and he's Machado.
Maybe. He transitioned.
Andy Gardner, thanks for the $5. Rest in peace, Venezuelan ecosystems. Well, yeah, that's the other thing. It's going to be an ecological clusterfuck down there for sure. Begrackle, thanks for the $5. Venezuela has a legal process for collectives to do eminent domain claims against property owners. That's what that rule of law bit was about. Thank you, Begrackled. Appreciate that. I like that screen name, Begrackled. Okay. Gray Fox, thanks for the $5. Is the Bolivar imploded? $300 trillion to $1 Maduro was done months ago. They bought off someone that gave the U.S. plans for Maduro's bunker around then. Could certainly be. Machado was not the opposition candidate in the last election. The candidate was Edmundo Gonzalez, who no one's even mentioned. Yeah, that's right. No one has even mentioned Edmundo Gonzalez. He got passed over. He's like the Edmundo Gonzalez is like the Chase Oliver of Venezuela. He gets no respect. Yeah. All right. By the way, my new nickname for Donald Trump, by the way, is now Don Guaido. That's what
Don Guaido.
That's what we should call him from now on. Yeah. All right, we can move right on along.
Okay. Well, when America does something, you can be pretty sure that there's an Israeli motive behind it. So here, Dr. Rameh Aladwan. 5 days ago, Netanyahu visits U.S. 4 days ago, U.S. issues new sanctions targeting Iran and Venezuela. 3 days ago, Netanyahu claims Iran could send arms to Venezuela. 2 days ago, Netanyahu leaves U.S. Today, U.S. bombs Venezuela and kidnaps Maduro and his wife. It's just a coincidence, I'm sure. So here's Netanyahu in the days leading up to the kidnapping of Maduro.
An unbelievable success, and by degrading Iran, which was a first-rate power, now it's a second-rate or third-rate power. They were throwing their weight all over the place, exporting terrorism, not only to every part of the Middle East, but to Venezuela. They're in cahoots with the Maduro regime, They're exporting terrorism to America, to the American hemisphere, and then they want these Hezbollah and Hamas to get their guys into the United States. So Hamas and Iran's and its proxies are a threat not only to us, but to Israel, all America's allies in the Middle East, and to America itself.
So from hats off, just a few days ago, Netanyahu connected Venezuela to Iran to push for another war. He had just left the U.S. when Trump bombed Caracas. Is this the world's wildest coincidence? Well, we leave that to you to decide, dear viewer. But Netanyahu was pretty happy about it. Congratulations, President Donald Trump, for your bold and historic leadership on behalf of freedom and justice. Yeah, that's what it's about. I salute your decisive resolve and the brilliant action of your brave soldiers. Well, there might be another explanation for why they did this, what got Venezuela on Netanyahu's radar. Alan McLeod here. It's worth remembering that as he cast his vote in last year's presidential election, Maduro shouted, "Long live free Palestine." His opponent, Maria Corina Machado, said that Israel's struggle is our struggle. Let's take a look.
Vamos a defender Palestina, presidente. Palestina. Viva Palestina libre.
Palestina libre, of course, Spanish for free Palestine. And here, by contrast, is Corina Machado, who just got the Nobel Prize, spoke very, very differently about Israel. Apparently not popular enough in her own country to install as the puppet U.S. Representative there, to be middle management there in Venezuela, but pro-Israel enough to use as a fake resistance leader.
I'd like to thank Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel. I promise we one day will have a close relationship between Venezuela and Israel. I myself look forward to visit the State of Israel as soon as we conquer freedom. We will prevail. And I can announce this, that our government will move our Israeli embassy to Jerusalem.
Yep. That's how you get a Nobel Peace Prize. That's how you get a Peace Prize these days. And you know who else was kind of excited about this whole thing? Nat Rothschild. See, this is going to get us kicked off. This is going to be the thing that finally gets us kicked off YouTube. Nat Rothschild posts a statement on X praising and congratulating the removal of Nicolas Maduro from power in Venezuela. Venezuela's central bank is fully state-owned and controlled by the government. In 2024, the Venezuelan government hired Rothschild and Company as a financial advisor to assess its foreign debt. Apparently, Maduro thought he was hiring them to manufacture cough drops in the country. He wasn't aware that they did banking. Rothschild and Company laid out exactly how much the regime owed and who was owed the money. So the Rothschilds, of course, instrumental in financing and using their considerable political influence, particularly in England, to make the state of Israel a reality. He is very excited about this turn of events.
I just want to enjoy today and this week and this month and even the rest of this year, savoring this moment. So I don't really think about the next step. This is a great achievement.
Well done, Donald J. Trump. Straight from the Rothschilds. Doesn't get any more pure Hasbara than that. So here is former Vice President, now President Dulce Rodriguez, talking about the Zionist tinge of these military actions. The extremists who have promoted this armed aggression, take that down, against our country, history and justice will make them pay. If there's something that the Venezuelan people in this country have very clear, is that we will never again be slaves, is that we will never again be a colony of any empire of whatever kind. Governments around the world are simply shocked that the Bolivian Republic of Venezuela is a victim and target of an attack of this nature, which undoubtedly has a Zionist tinge. Hey, you better be careful. You're going to wind up with the earphones and the sunglasses on a plane. You keep talking like that. And here is Mike Huckabee talking about how great this is for not only American interests, but of course for the interests he cares most about, Israel's interests.
Let's bring in U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, and it's going to make sense why we're bringing him on in just a moment, because what happens in Venezuela, what happens in Israel, everything's connected. Iran. First off, let me ask you this, Ambassador.
You're getting
your
warmer.
reaction when you saw what happened with the military and law enforcement operation in Venezuela.
Well, my first reaction, Rob, was to say, praise the Lord and thank you, President Trump. A lot of people may not make the connection as to why this matters to us in the Middle East. What they don't know is that Hezbollah is very active in Venezuela. There has been a 20-year partnership between Iran and Venezuela under both the two previous dictators. The ties are deep, and Hezbollah operates in 12 different countries throughout South America. It is not just a threat in the Western Hemisphere. It is a threat to the Middle East. So for the president to go after Venezuela not only deals with narco-terrorism and the many deaths of Americans who are killed by the poison of drugs, it is going to make life for those of us living in the Middle East much better, much safer to take Maduro out, to recognize that Hezbollah is active here, targeting not just Jewish people in all over South America, but using those tentacles to ultimately reach into the United States. This is good news for America, good news for the world.
Good news for anyone who wants to see the apocalypse so that Jesus comes back and raptures them.
Yeah.
It's good news for everyone who wants to see the end of the world so that we can have the Prince of Peace return the way they tell us it's going to happen in our fairy tale, in our little Lord of the Rings book there. Adam, this is what we want to see. Yeah, this is what the world would actually like to see. You know, if you could just do this, actually, that would be, I believe, legal under international law, because there is an arrest warrant from the ICC out on Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yes, he's a wanted man.
He is wanted by the international community, not by a country. It's not like Hungary is pressing charges against Netanyahu. There are international bodies with arrest warrants for Netanyahu. So, but that would never happen. What really struck me preparing all of this is, we've long known we're the baddies, and it's something that for a long time that was a very radical fringe view you'd only see amongst like far leftists and non-interventionist libertarians. Now I would dare say you might have a slight majority of Americans who understand that we're the bad guys. When you look at how Huckabee is talking about alliances between Hezbollah and Iran and Venezuela, even if that were true, what you're describing is a resistance movement against a destructive, arrogant, decadent, evil empire. That's what you're describing. You're describing people trying to resist one of the most destructive forces the world has ever known. And it does put you in a strange position as a member of that nation. You know, what do? You are a member of the empire. You are a citizen of this evil empire that is causing untold destruction and suffering, not only amongst its own people in the poverty, the immiseration, the collapsing infrastructure, the lack of health care, the nickel and diming working people for every breath of oxygen they take to keep them constantly stressed and afraid and overworked, but transporting that ideology to the rest of the world under the idea that it represents freedom or some nonsense like that. And now you're really talking about completely removing the mask and just going full might makes right. Yes, we're getting nervous about the inroads China is making into South America. Fuck y'all, man. We're just going to go in there. We're going to kidnap the leader. We're going to threaten the next one. If she doesn't do what we want, we'll take her out too. And if that's your country that you're from, it really does create a moral quandary. Like, what do you do? I mean, obviously, you try to use your citizenship to affect political change as somebody who's behind the wire. You're inside the empire. Presumably, you can have a greater impact than somebody who's not a citizen of that empire. At the same time, as we've said, there's no one to vote for. I mean, under Antony Blinken, you have these unproven and increasingly looking like completely false accusations of electoral fraud, which create the pretext for someone like Trump to do something like this. So if you're in a situation where your government is not redeemable through elections anymore, it puts you in a very difficult moral quandary as a member of that empire. What do you do? What do you do to relieve the suffering? Because when you're paying your tax dollars, your engagement with this system is helping to cause this. Like, it's a hard thing, and as time goes on, it just becomes more and more evident. It's literally like being a stormtrooper in Star Wars. It's like, what do you do? What do you do? How do you do your part to take this down? And what can you do that's not going to contribute to it?
Well, it's like being an Israeli, I mean, we are essentially Israelis as Americans.
Sure,
I mean, the idea that, the Israelis are this like vulgar presence, wreaking havoc from stolen land. Well, I mean, what do you think we are? It's the same exact thing.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
That's why, you have to, keep some perspective about that. To be clear, the Rothschild, the video of the Rothschild was old, but the tweet is current. He actually did congratulate Donald Trump for this operation in Venezuela. And one of the things that Huckabee said there, or I should say, sorry, one of the things he didn't say there that I'm a little surprised he didn't say there, given how just mask off most in this administration have been about our, aims for the oil and oil prices and access to oil. The way this helps Israel the most is it will, assuming we do get control of the oil and start distributing and selling the oil, our control of that oil will minimize disruption of global oil markets when the Iran war happens. That, to me, is the strategic interest for Israel here, is that if we get access to the world's largest oil reserves, it makes it a lot easier to start a war with Iran, which is what Israel wants. And that's what I think makes this such a sweetheart deal for the Zionists.
Yep.
All right. Andy Gardner, who wouldn't throw Machado under a bus? Thank you, Andy Gardner. Natural, thank you for the super chat. Lobbying money doesn't cover their war expenses. When are oil corporations going to pay for their wars? Good question, Mr. Natural. DC 8828, doesn't narco-terrorism kind of fund itself? I would think that would be the point of it, right? Yeah, exactly. Venezuelans shouldn't use their oil for their selfish interest and rejoice that their oil is being collectivized for the Western Hemisphere. Thank you. VSSE, the U.S. has active ties to the terrorist state of Israel. Doesn't mean the U.S. needs to be overthrown. Yeah, I mean, I think that is just hilariously desperate, that whole line. That this is dead. No, it's a national security issue.
Yeah.
There have been small scale terror attacks on U.S. soil. There have been plots that Kash Patel has come out and said that he's foiled. Have any of them originated from South America anywhere? Like, have they cited anything? Nothing.
Well, they're just making these claims with increasing confidence of narco-terrorism. The UN found that Venezuela is not involved in drug manufacturing or distribution.
Right.
But you repeat a lie enough, and the press certainly isn't all that curious.
Exactly. Eric Cusso, U.S. empire will saddle Venezuela with huge IMF loans so a country rich in resources is impoverished. Ravid Laz, fun fact, there already is a female Joker in the comics. In the Flashpoint story, a dystopian alternate timeline, Bruce Wayne is murdered. His father becomes Batman and his mother becomes the Joker. Thank you, Ravid Laz.
His mother becomes the Joker?
Interesting.
That's a weird twist.
That is a weird twist. The Goo81, she said she will improve and develop coastline is eerily similar to Let's Develop Gaza Shoreline. I wonder how many low-income families they will displace who benefited from Maduro Chavez policies. Thank you, Goo81. Just in case, Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia was the main opposition candidate who ran against incumbent Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela's 2024 presidential election, not Machado. But she's part of that party, isn't she? Was she on the ticket? I thought she was involved in some capacity. Travis J. Lag, Keaton, cancel your cable, then have your wife sign up for the service you want starting the day after your service ends. She should qualify for any new customer deals. Thank you. That's an idea. Eric Rousseau, Machado never had a chance. Trump is mad about Nobel not going to him. Yeah, there you go. That could be spite. E.O. Shush, remix Dick Gregory quote, if capitalism is so great, why do you have to force it with the barrel of the gun? When you got something really good, you don't have to force it on people. They will steal it. Thank you. Free shit. Not sure why no one has recognized that Machado could be the next poster in the Smile movie franchise. Yes, she could. Romero Scar, or Romero, like the Cubans, you guys alluded to who benefited from the Batista regime. Probably most of the Venezuelans celebrating are people who benefited from the regime in place before Chavez. Well, yeah, the diaspora Venezuelans are naturally going to be celebrating, but they're here. They're not in Venezuela. Like, there's celebrations in Florida, as we'll get to. Eric Rousseau, Venezuela stole your gold by putting it in our banks. We will take the gold. Wait, we already did. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. TPS report, Melania New Year's Eve. Darling Barron has to complete a special project for his NYU Third World Studies program. Viceroy of Venezuela would be so educational. Please, Pookie, can we invade? Thank you, TPS report. The Anticus Prime just looked at Disclosed.tv's feed. Trump is talking about Colombia and Greenland in the ways you expect. Yep, not a surprise. All right, go ahead, Russell. Let's move on along.
Okay. Hang on one second.
Okay.
Let me come back. I was loading in videos. All right, what are we on now? All right, who's next?
Yep,
just finished that. Okay. So in a chilling bit of saying the soft part out loud like he does, there's Donald Trump saying, hey, yeah, we're going to kill who we want. No one can stop us. Yeah, that's the ticket.
Can't take a chance after having done this incredible thing last night of letting somebody else take over, where we have to do it again. We can do it again, too. Nobody can stop us. There's nobody that has the capability that we have. You know, when I watch that war in Russia going on and on and on and everybody dying, and it's like it's primitive. It's primitive. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Could you tell us, Mr. President?
You know, this is an interesting thing that he's saying here because, he's making the rather terrifying assertion, hey, nobody has a military like us, which is true. And we all pay the price for it with having our roads and bridges falling apart while all this money gets dumped into these foreign adventures and these over 1,000 military bases. But at the same time, he's saying, yeah, what Russia's doing is horrible, but I thought you were going to finish it in 2 weeks.
Right.
If we have this incredible capability, then why is this war still ongoing? But I think a lot of times he just bullshits. He just throws stuff against the wall. If something doesn't stick, he'll just deny he said it. So how do you get on the list of your next? Well, here's Claudia Sheinbaum talking about Venezuela a couple of weeks ago, middle of December.
De todas maneras, y por la situación.
Before anything, well, let's take it back and let me turn that down. Before anything else, and in light of the situation, due to President Trump's statement yesterday, and the situation in Venezuela, we reiterate Mexico's position in accordance with our Constitution, non-intervention, no foreign interference, self-determination of peoples, and peaceful resolution of disputes. We call for any international controversy to be addressed through dialogue and peace, not through intervention. That is our position by conviction. And by constitutional mandate, that must always be the position of any president of Mexico, regardless of opinions about the government of Venezuela. Okay, well, they're not going to like the sound of that. That sounds reasonable, and that sounds like what most people would want. That's not the kind of thing that goes over big with the American government, no matter who's in charge. So here's Trump talking about, the cartels running things. Something's got to be done.
Must stop. So was this operation a message that you're sending to Mexico, to Claudia Sheinbaum, the president there?
Well, it wasn't meant to be, and we're very friendly with her. She's a good woman, but the cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. And we could be politically correct.
And I hear they're running it very well. She's lifted a lot of people out of poverty. They're doing a lot better over there. Maybe we should have the cartels come run things over here. The way things are going for it's doing very well for the people having the cartels running things.
Correct, and be nice and say, oh, yes, she is. No, she's very, she's very frightened of the cartels. They're running Mexico. And I've asked her numerous times, would you like us to take out the cartels? No, Mr. President. No, please. So we have to do something because we lost. The real number is 300,000 people, in my opinion. They like to say 100,000. 100,000 is a lot of people, but the real number is 300,000 people. And we lost it to drugs, and they come in through the southern border, mostly the southern border. Plenty come in through Canada, too, by the way, in case you don't know. But they come in through the southern border, and something's going to have to be done with Mexico.
Why did you?
Something's going to have to be done with Mexico. That's pretty ominous. Now, there's another way you could get on Trump's radar by, basically calling him the leader of a clan of PDF files, as the president of Colombia recently did.
Un clan de pedófilos.
A clan of PDF files wants to destroy democracy in Colombia.
Acabar la democracia en Colombia. Duro, sí.
Harsh, yes, but that's the reality. And to keep the list from coming out, they send warships to kill fishermen from this city and threaten the neighbor, talking about dictator and so on. This actually might be why Michael Tracy bailed tonight. He might be on the way to Colombia right now on a mission. As if the people of Colombia would applaud the invasion of their brother, which is not the president, but the people of Venezuela. When would we ever be so treacherous and sold out, betraying our own blood, or the people of Panama, or the people of Venezuela? Okay, so Trump was asked about Colombia at his press conference.
So Colombian President Gustavo Petro, a couple weeks ago, he said he's got to watch his ass. And today he said he's not concerned about anything happening to him in the aftermath of this operation. So just what your message is about that.
Well, he has cocaine mills. He has factories where he makes cocaine. And, yeah, I think I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. So he does have to watch his ass.
Yeah. So basically, narco terrorism is the new. They're coming right at us, right? They were coming right for us. They're coming right for us, right? So now anybody they want to invade, they're going to say was sending drugs into the United States. But hey, the granddaddy of all dreamt of regime change operations since the failed Bay of Pigs, the thorn in the side of the empire, 70 miles off the coast of the United States, sticking its commie thumb in the eye of American freedom and democracy. Cuba, of course, coming up on the agenda as we start settling scores down south.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, is there a message here for Cuba and Diaz-Canel?
Well, Cuba's an interesting case. Cuba is, not doing very well right now. That system has not been a very good one for Cuba. The people there have suffered for many, many years. And I think Cuba is going to be...
Here, it's much better. We have 500,000 people go bankrupt from medical bankruptcies here every year. I think that we want to bring that system to the Cuban people. We want to liberate them from their free health care.
Something we'll end up talking about because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly.
They send their own doctors all over the world. They have so many doctors. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. They send them to help people around the world. Here, people can't even with insurance, they can't get a doctor. They die. The people are dying here. We want to bring that system there. It brings down the overpopulation.
Failing nation, and we want to help the people. It's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba, but we want to also help the people that were forced out of Cuba and living in this country. Do you want to say something about?
The rich people who got forced out of there, who were exploiting the peasants. We want that. We want to bring that system back to Cuba.
About that, Marco, please.
Well, I mean, I just gave you a statement a few minutes ago about, when the president speaks, you should take him seriously. Suffice it to say, Cuba is a disaster. It's run by incompetent, senile men, and in some cases,
right?
Not senile, but incompetent nonetheless. It has no economy. It's in total collapse. And by the way, they were, all of the guards that helped protect Maduro, this is well known, their whole spy agency, all that were full of Cubans. I mean, it's amazing. This poor island took over Venezuela in some cases. One of the biggest problems the Venezuelans have is they have to declare independence from Cuba that tried to basically colonize it from a security standpoint. So, yeah, look, if I lived in Havana and I was in the government, I'd be concerned, at least a little bit.
Be concerned. So Kristen Welker followed up on this a little bit. Ryan Grimm here says Rubio's longtime fever dream, using the U.S. government to overthrow the Cuban government, is well within his reach, and he can taste it. Here he is tasting it. Hang on. I got a lot of videos going on here. There we go.
Is the Cuban government the Trump administration's next target, Mr. Secretary? Very quickly.
Well, the Cuban government is a huge problem. Yeah, the Cuban government is a huge problem. First of all,
is that a yes?
Cuba, but I don't think people fully appreciate. I think they're in a lot of trouble, yes. I'm not going to talk to you about what our future steps are going to be and our policies are going to be right now in this regard, but I don't think it's any mystery that we are not big fans of the Cuban regime, who, by the way, are the ones that were propping up Maduro. His entire, internal security force, his internal security apparatus is entirely controlled by Cubans. One of the untold stories here is how, in essence, you talk about colonization, because I think you said Delcy Rodriguez mentioned that. The ones who have sort of colonized, at least inside the regime, are Cubans. It was Cubans that guarded Maduro. He was not guarded by Venezuelan bodyguards. He had Cuban bodyguards. In terms of their internal intelligence, who spies on who inside to make sure there are no traitors, those are all Cubans.
All right, Secretary.
It's almost like people in this hemisphere where you have this government that for over 200 years has maintained that it has a right under this doctrine that it made up, the Monroe Doctrine, to control their countries, tend to form alliances in order to resist that kind of domination from that country. That's so nefarious. And actually, when you listen to the language that he's talking and you look at the op-ed in the Washington Post, that's the kind of argument that brainwashes liberals into supporting this kind of thing. There's a baseline assumption that Cuba is evil, that these countries are all evil, they're bad, their people don't want these governments. So if you make an argument like that, see, Cuba was in there, that's the kind of argument that actually works on libs, right? Well, it's a complicated world. It's a hard world. Sometimes it's hard to know what the right thing to do is. So here is Abraham Majed, one of the best things I've read on this. He tweeted out, If the United States succeeds in imposing control over Venezuela, and by extension, over the world's largest proven oil reserves, it will mark a major shift in global power. Such a move would not be about restoring democracy or protecting human rights, but about reasserting strategic dominance over energy, trade routes, and regional alignments. In that case, Iran would likely move to the forefront of Washington's strategic priorities. Securing control over Venezuelan oil would reduce U.S. vulnerability to energy disruptions in the Gulf and provide a buffer against supply shocks in the event of a confrontation with Iran. With a reliable alternative source of heavy crude under its influence, Washington would be better positioned to absorb or offset the destruction or shutdown of energy infrastructure in the Persian Gulf during a war. This would lower the economic cost of escalation and make military pressure against Iran more politically and economically manageable. You want to understand why we haven't just straight up overthrown the government in Iran? That's why. That's why we're worried about what it would do to oil supply and oil prices. This removes a lot of that risk. At the same time, such control would strengthen the United States' ability to shape global oil flows and pricing, reinforcing the central role of the dollar, i.e., the petrodollar, in energy markets and helping preserve the petrodollar system that underpins U.S. financial power. Venezuela would thus become more than a regional issue. It would become a strategic precedent, a demonstration that economic pressure, political engineering, and, if necessary, force can be used to restructure sovereign states and realign the global balance of power. However, if the United States becomes entangled in Venezuela and faces sustained resistance, the outcome shifts dramatically. A prolonged crisis would drain political capital, stretch military and economic resources, and weaken Washington's capacity to project power elsewhere, including in the Middle East. That would also complicate Israeli strategic planning, which is closely tied to U.S. regional leverage. What happens in Venezuela will not stay in Latin America. It will shape the future of energy control, the limits of American power, and the direction of geopolitical confrontation far beyond Caracas. Yes, that is the big picture. Look, these guys saw China, which in the end offers a much better deal to the countries that it does business with, probably the greatest upside being look, this could change at some point in the future. Certainly, the nature of great powers is to become corrupted by power over time. But as of now, they offer a pretty good deal to the countries they do business with. They're really not interested in setting up military bases or making the country a client state or interfering in their government or overthrowing their leaders. They build you a port and we do trade, we do business, right? So how are you going to stop the Chinese from building these inroads in your so-called backyard? Well, you got to use force because we're not about to offer a fair deal. It's a fair deal. You got to offer a better deal or you got to go in militarily. And given the nature of our empire, violence has tended to be the first choice rather than the last choice, more so as time goes on and we become more senile and impotent and raging at changes in the world that frighten us. So, yeah, I mean, that's the play. That's the play. Control the world's largest oil reserves in order also, look, everybody can see the death of the dollar as the reserve currency coming. They're trying to flip the board. It's a losing game. They're saying, well, flip the board. If we control the oil, we control the denomination of oil, and we can keep the reserve currency going beyond its natural lifespan. That's what all of this is about. And the nonsense about freedom and democracy. You know, there's really never been a violent imperialistic empire that felt no need to morally justify itself, at least for the rubes, bringing civilization to the savages. I mean, it's always built on the idea that your culture is superior and people are lucky to be conquered by you. So they're going to throw out the freedom and the democracy nonsense, but it couldn't be a more obvious power play to flip the board and avoid the obvious shift towards Asia with China at the center of it, of global domination, and to preserve the dollar and to ease the way towards overthrowing the government of Iran.
Well, yeah, and that's obviously what the play is. And I don't even think it's a long-term play. I think it's a pretty short-term play. When you look at the accelerated pace at which this is all happening, and the sort of escalative nature, escalating. Sorry, tripped over my words there. Nature of the violence, quite frankly. Then yeah, I don't think you're looking at an a prolonged timeline here. I think it's fairly obvious that this is what's coming around the pike. That's why I think Israel stands to benefit from this as much as they do. We talked about that in the last segment. And, a guy like Marco Rubio, I mean, what Grimm says there is true. This is his fever dream. You could see this coming when they made him Secretary of State. Remember, there was that brief glimmer of hope that people had when the MAGA online chorus shut down the Pompeo rumor that he was being considered for Secretary of State. Maybe there's a chance. The way in which Marco Rubio, a guy who was on video dozens, hundreds of times trashing Donald Trump when he ran against him in 2016. The way this little weasel has ingratiated himself, not only to Trump, but to the MAGA base, just shows how unprincipled they are and have always been. These are always just a bunch of bootlicking empire simps. You could tell that right away. I mean, just their love for the police is really, a pretty good sign of who these people actually are in their heart of hearts. And we see that now playing out in very, very destructive ways. And I think it's going to get worse pretty quickly.
The trajectory they're on, and they're being pretty open about it. Cuba is the prize. They want to invade Cuba.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, it's certainly Marco Rubio's prize. I don't know I think obviously because of the volume of oil in Venezuela, strategically, that seems to be the big prize, right? That's the piece on the board they use to insulate the world from the disruptive effects of an Iran war, right?
Right.
But, Marco Rubio, I mean, yes, it is a fever dream. I mean, Marco Rubio obviously wants to overthrow the Cuban government, and while they're at it, why not? That's probably what they're thinking.
Yes.
I
think it's also symbolic for them.
For sure. Well, it's also,
not just Rubio.
No, for everybody. Well, I mean, obviously the Soviet Union was a formidable force on the world stage, but you just want to take these alternatives, all these alternative models off the board.
Right. Exactly.
Just take them off the board. Then there's no competing, societal or economic formation for people to organize around. Right. This is the road to feudalism. Here's the deal.
Right.
We
Global
own everything.
Feudalism.
Right. We own everything. We pay you what we think we should, and that's that.
Yep.
Simple. Pretty simple in their mind. All right. Let's put our scroll up, Jake, please. If we could put the scroll up. So, hey, folks, if you like what we do here and you want to help us do more of it, by far the best way to support us is to become a member. Member perks include bonus content, including bonus supporter streams, post-game live streams, call-in Q&As every week after the show, every Sunday night over on Rumble. Tonight is Sunday, so we will be going to Rumble after the show for the Q&A tonight. You also get ad-free replays of every live stream emailed to you the day after they air on the public waves. So if you want to catch a stream in its entirety without sitting through the ad breaks, You get that emailed to you the day after every show for just $5 a month. The links are right there on the screen. DoDissidents.com/Patreon//Substack or /Locals. Thank you all very much for your support. We'll leave the scroll up while we take these super chats. Dub H. Smith, Venezuelans shouldn't use their oil for selfish interest and rejoice that their oil is being collectivized for the Western Hemisphere. Yeah, there you go. The warmth of collectivism. Jolly Man Big Boy, call me crazy, but I'm beginning to think that mobilizing an entire political movement on men and women's sports wasn't that great of an idea. Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. Gaw 0046, I would at least take getting a clear motive on what the fuck this is, because I've seen it now. It was about either drugs, oil, liberating the people, and now it's about actual vassal state making imperialism. That's right. Atomic Yang, Venezuela supplied 40% of oil to allied nations during World War II, with production increasing 64% from 1939 to 1945, a critical supplier. Thank you for that. Why the fuck would a Maduro government give a Rothschild access to the books? Thank you, David Connor. Santucci says, what do you do if you're a citizen of the empire? Well, you guys started a pretty good podcast that's educating thousands of people. There you go. Well, thank you, David Santucci.
We try.
That's something.
Thank you.
Red Maze, Keaton, the prez is kidnapped. The Venezuelan government and military is still in power. Trump's delusions of running Venezuela is fantasy. U.S. boots are not in Venezuela. If they do come, they leave in body bags. Well, I think that's what our government is afraid of, and that's why I think what they're going to try and do is cut a deal with the vice president turned president. That's why I think they don't want to send troops in. I don't know if they want to send troops in ever. I think they might just get control of the oil and then just let the political situation deteriorate. That's what I think is going to happen. I'd be surprised if we put troops on the ground there for any sustained period of time. Marvin Vargas, U.S. collateral future oil profits pay off $38 trillion. Edward Campbell says, praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. John Jarecki says, free Maduro. Thank you, John. Israel should not exist. What an awful people, these Oval Office journalists. Thank you for that. Atomic Yang says, 1953 U.S. Operation Ajax overthrew Iran democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, who wanted to nationalize Iran's oil industry. Yep, seems similar to what's going on now. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I stuck to the 70s examples since that's when Venezuela nationalized their oil. But yeah, it's a tale as old as oil, I should say. If you go to nationalize your oil, that spells trouble. Goo81 says, let's not forget about MI6 and CIA operation to coup Iran's democratically elected government. Yes, yeah, there you go. Same thing. Perfect example how regime change is horrible for many decades, of course. Seamus Warren, have they set a trial date? Let's test the evidence. Old Stoner, hey, if you want Americans to stop dying from drugs and make life better in the USA. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, it's now all of a sudden, all these people who want to bootstrap everything and, you know, the Republicans' message to drug addicts for the last, last 75 years has been that you're a loser and a junkie and go die in a gutter. And now all of a sudden they want to hold your hand when it's time to blame Venezuela for it. I eagerly await Taibbi and Kern's take on Venezuela like I eagerly await my root canal tomorrow. Thank you, Kenman. Melania reading to children, does Delta Force wears night vision goggles when they abduct world leaders? Does it make everything look green like money? Thank you, Kenman. Appreciate that. All right, we will move right on along here, folks. Okay, so we have said, one of the overlooked sellouts of the year is got to be Tulsi Gabbard. This was one that we didn't think of her. Part of why we didn't think of her is because she's been very, very, very quiet lately. This is one of her few public appearances in recent months. This is from October 31st of this year, posted by Michael Tracy on the 1st of December, in which she said with a straight face that Donald Trump is putting an end to Washington's endless cycle of regime change, wars, and nation building.
Way of thinking. The old Washington way of thinking is something we hope is in the rearview mirror and something that has held us back for too long. For decades, our foreign policy has been trapped in a counterproductive and endless cycle of regime change or nation building. It was a one-size-fits-all approach of toppling regimes, trying to impose our system of governance on others, intervene in conflicts that were barely understood, and walk away with more enemies than allies. The results: trillions spent, countless lives lost, and in many cases, a creation of greater security threats. The rise of Islamist terrorist groups like ISIS. President Trump was elected by the American people to put an end to this. And from day one, he has showed a very different way to conduct foreign policy.
Different way to conduct foreign policy. Is that right? That was, once again, folks, just 2 months ago. That was Halloween. Trick or treat.
But you could tell it's getting to her. You could tell it's getting to her having to do this act, having to pretend this administration is anything like what she's describing.
Well, she doesn't do the act much anymore. She doesn't speak in public anymore.
Yeah.
Not only does she not speak in public much anymore, she really doesn't tweet much anymore either. She's been pretty out of the public eye in recent months. But speaking of tweets, this is one from January of 2019, 7 years ago. Man, are we getting old, huh? The United States needs to stay out of Venezuela. Let the Venezuelan people determine their future. We don't want other countries to choose our leaders, so we have to stop trying to choose theirs. That is Tulsi Gabbard, the current director of national intelligence, who most likely played a pivotal role in the invasion of Venezuela and capture of Maduro. That's Stephen Greenstreet's tweet with the screenshot there. Good find. But that is far from the only time that Tulsi Gabbard has sung a completely different tune on Venezuela. Look at this collage of tweets of all of her cautioning against regime change in Venezuela over the years. That is quite the collection. Let's just take a look. Oh, sorry. Let's just take a look at one of these. Let's just take a look at one of these examples, one of the tweets in that collage with some video. Here she is running for president in 2020. Throughout history, every time the U.S. topples a foreign country's dictator or government, the outcome has been disastrous. Civil war, military intervention in Venezuela will wreak death and destruction to Venezuelan people and increase tensions that threaten our national security.
Exclusively, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, a combat veteran and 2020 Democratic presidential candidate. What's your reaction to that? You heard Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the president there.
What we are hearing is an increased saber-rattling intention saying the United States needs to send in the U.S. military now to wage yet another wasteful, counterproductive regime change war. And once again, it's being done under the guise of humanitarianism. When we look throughout history, every time the United States goes into another country and topples a dictator or topples a government, the outcome has been disastrous for the people in these countries. That's why we should use our leadership in the world to try to broker a diplomatic solution, working with countries like Russia that have great influence over Venezuela so that there is a peaceful outcome. Because I can tell you as a soldier, Martha, I've seen firsthand the high cost of war, and pushing for this civil war, pushing for the use of military force will only end up with more suffering and death and disaster for the Venezuelan people. What to speak of increasing these tensions that threaten our own national security. Anytime we're in this situation where you have tensions being ratcheted up and this conflict being pushed closer and closer between nuclear armed countries like the United States and countries like Russia and China, this is something that poses an existential threat to the American people.
Wow. Look at that. That's our old campaign logo. Tulsi 2020. My, what could have been. But, for a more recent dissent from Tulsi Gabbard, at least that's what this looked like, which we'll get into in a moment. This was back in May of this year. U.S. intelligence memo says Venezuelan government does not control Tren de Aragua gang. So this is when Donald Trump was litigating the use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport violent criminals, quote unquote, because most of those who he deported were not, in fact, criminals at all. But he was sending them back to Venezuela, not to Venezuela, to El Salvador. And so the Alien Enemies Act was a point of contention here. And Venezuela, of course, in order to invoke the Alien Enemies Act, would have to have been, conducting a war against America. So at the time, Tulsi Gabbard, or at least her department, her DNI, voiced some objection to that. The April 7th memo obtained by the Freedom of the Press Foundation on May 5th and shared with NPR shows that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence concluded that while some members of the Maduro regime may tolerate or work with Tren de Aragua, there's no evidence of widespread organized cooperation. The Maduro regime probably does not have a policy of cooperating with TDA and is not directing TDA movement to operations in the United States. Is that what it says? Oh,
Yeah.
movement to and
Movement to
operations in. Got
yeah.
it. I was okay. The font was small. I didn't see what I was reading. In fact, the memo states Maduro and top Venezuelan officials view the gang as a threat. The memo states that the Intelligence Council has not observed the regime directing TDA, including to push migrants to the United States, which probably would require extensive coordination and funding between regime entities and TDA leaders. So that was a big turd in the punch bowl, because they're trying to establish that Maduro is a military enemy of the United States in order to invoke the Alien Enemies Act. And this DNI memo seemed to really refute that. So given that opposition, given that pushback from Tulsi's DNI, you may think she would have some objections to this recent hostility toward Venezuela. But if we look at her most recent tweet on New Year's Day, here she is. Heart is filled with gratitude, aloha, and peace. So that's nice. I'm happy for you that you feel all this aloha, gratitude, and peace while your boss lights the hemisphere on fire by invading Venezuela. That's her personal account. Maybe she voices some objection to this Venezuela policy from her official DNI account. Let's see. What's her most recent post as DNI? It's a Merry Christmas. Wow. Christmas Eve was her last post as DNI from her DNI government handle. So that's a little strange, not seeing much pushback from her at all, given her history of opposition to intervention in Venezuela, and given the fact that her DNI seemed to really create a political problem for Donald Trump by putting out that memo over the spring that refuted his rationale for invoking the Alien Enemies Act. So there's something is missing here. There must be a story that sort of flew under the radar between then and now that might explain where Tulsi's coming from. Oh, look, we found one. How do you like that?
Mm-hmm.
In September of this year, DNI Gabbard recalls classified report on Venezuela in highly unusual move. Okay, so this was back in September of this year, between when that memo was written and, of course, now. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard directed the National Security Agency in recent months to recall a classified report about Venezuela, despite agency staff affirming it was accurate and complied with all NSA policies, in a move that has raised major questions inside the intelligence community, according to people familiar with the matter. The classified report related to Venezuela and one of President Donald Trump's special envoys, Richard Grenell, the People said. One of the People said it included conversations that Grenell had with Nicolas Maduro, the leader of Venezuela, whom the U.S. has accused of drug trafficking, as well as information about Grenell collected by the NSA. Grinnell serves as a special envoy for Trump and has at times clashed with the State Department over attempts to release Americans from Venezuela. Shortly after Trump took office, Grinnell visited Caracas to meet with Maduro. The surprise visit prompted speculation that the White House might be walking back the maximum pressure campaign against Maduro that it had previously pursued. Grinnell returned to the U.S. with 6 Americans the U.S. had deemed illegally detained, and the White House celebrated their return. But the episode set up a clash between Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who has long opposed giving any concessions to Maduro, and Grinnell, who was pushing to make deals with the leader. In the months since the visit, the White House has made clear it opposes Maduro. Gabbard fired the top 2 career officials leading the National Intelligence Council, which is the senior most analytical group in the intelligence community, whose job it is to understand and assess the biggest threats facing the United States. Now, here's the piece of information we may be looking for. The dismissals came shortly after the ODNI, which Gabbard leads, released a declassified assessment from the council about the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua that undercut the Trump administration's key argument for invoking the Alien Enemies Act to speed up deportations. So, see, we thought it was strange that her DNI put out this memo which refuted the aims of her boss, Donald Trump, because we assumed that since this came out of her DNI that she was on board with the findings, when, in fact, she fired the people who came up with these findings. So she kind of shut down any consensus within her purview, within her jurisdiction, that might lead to de-escalation with Venezuela. Gabbard, when asked about the assessment at the time, blasted the media for twisting and manipulating intelligence assessments to undermine the president's agenda to keep the American people safe. So that's how she categorized the media reporting on that memo. Gabbard has vowed to root out what she has described as politicization of the intelligence community and launched a war on leaks to the media that critics say is hollowing out the intelligence community of needed expertise from experienced professionals. Well, that is grade A gaslighting, because what she did was the complete opposite. She made the DNI more political by insisting that anyone who came up with findings that did not reinforce the president's aims in that example of invoking the Alien Enemies Act had to go. So she gets up there on Halloween and talks about how the president has turned a page from the old playbook of regime change wars. And meanwhile, she has been working the whole time to execute the agenda of Donald Trump, to the point where when people, who work under her issued a document that might de-escalate with Venezuela and might undermine Marco Rubio's efforts to drum up hostilities with Venezuela in the run-up to the ousting and kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro. What did she do? She ran interference for the president. That's what she did. That is clearly what she did, and that's clearly what she's been doing the whole time. Tulsi Gabbard has always been a person of no principles whatsoever. None whatsoever. That's why I could not for the life of me understand why people were so invested in her confirmation when she got nominated for this job. What did you think she was going to do? Did you think she was going to stick to her guns to try and prevent this from happening? The whole time she's been working to implement the agenda of Donald Trump. That Tulsi Gabbard from 6 years ago that I showed you in the campaign video, she doesn't exist anymore. And she probably never existed at all. That was just the grift of the day back then. So it's really pretty disgraceful. And that story kind of flew under the radar. I mean, the thing about the Trump administration is there's, 50 news stories a day that you feel like you have to follow. And so I feel like that did not get the coverage that it probably warranted at the time. And it makes a whole hell of a lot of sense now when you look at Tulsi's complete silence in the face of this Venezuela op. that, yes, whoever the gentleman was who tweeted that, Steve something, you have to figure she was involved in this. She was involved in this. I mean, she's the DNI. They did execute their aim with surprising efficiency and precision. So you have to imagine she was in on that to a large extent. And it's just really an indication of just how unprincipled a person she is.
Yeah. Tulsi Gabbard, for really her entire public life, has been on every side of every issue. She called Trump Saudi Arabia's bitch. Literally called him a bitch in public. This is why we did a whole segment about Tulsi being literally a PSYOP commander.
Right.
She was the commander of a PSYOP unit in the, I believe it's Southeast Asia, actually, in that region. So who do you think she is? What is she? It's amazing to see so many people who that would be immediately disqualifying, right? You're literally a PSYOP soldier running around gassing her up. This is that tendency, man. I think it's a basic primate thing. People want to believe in leaders. They like to get invested that way. They like to have somebody that they look up at. The red flags on Tulsi Gabbard were not hard to see. We did a whole segment about it before she was confirmed. We got a lot of pushback from certain quarters that really wanted to believe in Tulsi. I don't know why. I really don't know why. Because if that was all she said on these kinds of subjects, I could see it. There is no statement you can find from Tulsi Gabbard that you cannot find the opposite statement from Tulsi Gabbard. So what did you think she was going to do? She's never held a principled stand before. She's all of a sudden going to hold a principled stand now.
Yeah.
In the brothel that is the Trump administration, you could argue that Tulsi Gabbard is the cheapest, filthiest whore in that brothel, because unlike the rest of them, most of the rest of them, she never really pretended to be anything other than what she is, a grifter. People projected what they wanted to see onto her. They chose to ignore her long history of being on every side of every issue. But for her to be silent at this moment, when this was such a signature issue for her, to not get involved in things like Venezuela, I think what happened was after that intelligence report, they sidelined her. Like, they just basically told her to shut the fuck up, stay out of the public eye, because it was after that you really stopped seeing her.
Yeah, haven't seen much of her at all.
That's it. You completely blew your credibility for an administration that's just kind of using you for a false credibility they don't deserve, and that certainly she should not be viewed as an agent of, or somebody who can really give them that credibility. But now the grift is up. The grift is up. Like I said, that October 31st speech, you could see the strain in her face, man. Trying to pretend to be some kind of non-interventionist figure, and while connecting that to this administration, it's a bit much even for her.
Yes, heart was not in it for sure. All right, let's move right on along here. We got these bastard journalists will continue to push all the names of Latin American countries again and again and again until Trump decides to start some shit in a fresh Latin American country.
Yep.
That's right. Check your phone over there. Sparky, Trump didn't go for Grenell's Venezuela agreements because Maduro wouldn't step down immediately. So by tying Maduro up in court for 2 years, Grenell's agreements can be implemented. Brad Gilbert, Trump and BB gun Netanyahu hoping to clear the risk board before Russia and China get a set of cards. Petrodollar versus BRICS, but BIS really controls both. Thank you, Brad Gilbert. Sparky, Trump can say got over on Maduro. Maduro can win in court. return to leading Venezuela, having never stepped down. A possible win. Maduro can win in court. I mean, I don't think they're going to let him back into Venezuela, no matter what happens.
No way.
I think that is not going to happen. Jolly Man Big Boy, petro oil can be used for lubrication. I'm suspicious that Shmuley's fingerprints were all over this regime change. He's the new Daniel Plainview. Yeah, good one. Sparky 6086 Robert Barnes said one of the reasons Trump kidnapped Maduro was because a major donor bought Venezuelan debt for pennies on the dollar. So Trump's trying to get him paid. Okay. What do we got here over on Rumble? Furrow Squeen says, listen to me, Shinebaum. Keep your trap shut until I've been to see Dave Matthews and Nathaniel Ratcliffe, or else. When I went to Canada, same thing happened. A week previous, they were prodding Iran. You don't want the hemisphere safe for now, right? Shady deals. There are no countries, only companies. That's right. Free shit, says Robert Jensen, University of Texas, wrote a book, Citizens of the Empire, during the Iraq invasion. He described the military as a cult. Thank you very much. What do we got here? Sparky, in the anti-European colonialism spirit of the Monroe Doctrine, wouldn't it be better if Trump changed the Dutch Antilles to the Trump Antilles rather than messing with a Bolivarian republic? Yeah, we had a segment planned on the Don Rowe Doctrine, but Russ is going to do that tomorrow on Jimmy's.
Yes.
Brad Gilbert says BP was in Libya, Kuwait, Iraq, Iran, Nigeria, Bolivia, and Venezuela. U.S. is still just a British colony. It's not Israel. It's the city of London. Madiferrero, thanks for the $50. Let's have a cowbell for Madiferrero. Appreciate that very much. Venezuela was a great choice for first step on Latin America domination by Trump team. A society extremely divided, where at least half the population hates Maduro. They are blinded by their hate and trading one dictator for another. Interesting. Sparky, free the Dutch Antilles from the Dutch tyranny and brutal oppression. It's about as easy as freeing Greenland from Danish tyranny and brutal oppression. Thank you for that. All right, we got one more segment on the night. Jake, this will be our last segment, so get ready to take us over to Rumble after the segment is done for the Q&A. But we got one more piece on the nights.
Okay, calling this one Cucks for Venezuela.
Yeah.
So here's Benny Johnson. Benny Johnson. Massive crowds have taken to the streets of Venezuela to celebrate President Trump's capture of dictator Nicolas Maduro. Someone should show this to the Democrats and corporate media. Yeah, because the Democrats have been so resistant to this move, as has the corporate media. But, hang on. Community note. This video is from Santiago, Chile, not the streets of Venezuela, where there are probably a lot of those people like Machado who are from the wealthy elites that didn't like the Chavez takeover. This is really a big blow to the gay community because Benny was just starting to live his truth, and people thought this might lead to a little more honesty. He actually came out at TPUSA, probably the biggest news to come out of that conference, other than recreating the scene of Charlie's death for selfies. Look at him go.
There you go.
Look at him go. That is a proud gay man right there.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a proud gay man. But, you know, I guess that new honesty does not extend to international geopolitics. Alex Jones. Millions of Venezuelans fled the streets of Caracas and other major cities in celebration of the ouster of communist dictator Nicolas Maduro. Now we need to see the same type of energy here on the home front. The domestic political equivalent of this incredibly decisive move into Venezuela is getting rid of the filibuster. We are in the end game. It's time to start acting like it. Yeah, wow, man. Wow. Wait, what happened to the old Alex Jones, who would have been talking about this as part of constructing the new world order and how the globalists want this? What happened, man? He got his mind right, huh? Oh, and by the way, video clip is from 2024, uploaded to Instagram July 30th, 2024. All these guys, man, they're pulling out these videos claiming to be in Venezuela that are not. It's almost like they're getting told to do this, like they're getting paid by somebody. You remember Marjorie Taylor Greene specifically called out Influenceable as the paymaster for these people. They press a button, they tell them what talking points to put out, and they get paid.
We warned you globalists would manipulate the space-time continuum to punk us into posting old videos that aren't real.
That's I had a visitation last night from a demon. From a demon, looked like Tucker Carlson. So Nick Shirley jumping on this, trying to expand his 15 minutes here. Wait a minute. The MSM media lied to us again. The people of Venezuela actually didn't like being ruled by a narco-terrorist. World Cup-style celebrations are erupting all across Venezuela at the moment. Congratulations to the people of Venezuela. Que Dios te bendiga. Honestly, I don't know what bendiga means. I didn't get that far in my Spanish.
It means Somali fraud.
Probably means Somali fraud. That's probably it. So here's the community note. Video depicts Venezuelan exiles celebrating the U.S. capture of Nicolas Maduro in Doral, Miami, Florida, rather than celebrations within Venezuela. Again, you have these rabid right-wing communities that live in exile, as we've seen with the Cuban exiles in Florida. Let's not forget, Nick Shirley is one of the most obvious, transparent ops in the history of ops. James Lee did a whole video on it. You can check it out. Nick Shirley's trip to Israel in November 2024 was sponsored by the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. The trip aimed to have truth-seeking influencers document the situation in the country and share their findings with their audiences. You know, not coincidentally, Nick Shirley is pumping this up. Nick Shirley, who clearly is an Israeli op, and who's excited about this move? Oh, Benjamin Netanyahu. Congratulations, President Trump, for your bold and historic leadership on behalf of freedom and justice. I salute your decisive resolve and the brilliant action of your brave soldiers. Hey, Keaton, isn't it weird that Nick Shirley, who nobody ever really heard of, all of a sudden surfaced, drumming up all of this hostility towards the Somali community at the same exact moment that Benjamin Netanyahu started a strategic partnership with Somaliland, a breakaway province of Somalia where they want to put military bases from which they can strike Yemen? It's almost like this kid's a total op.
I don't know. I still think it's suspicious that a Somali daycare center is open in the afternoon. I don't buy the whole, it's an after-school program. That seems too convenient. I don't know.
That's a little too simple.
He should have stayed in his lane because he was so great at that. And then he tried expanding. You know, it's a classic. That's one of the most common errors people make in business, Nick. I know you're a young guy. Okay, one of the most common mistakes in business is you expand too quickly, right?
Yeah.
Stick to what you're good at, which is harassing daycare centers with children inside, because you've obviously really nailed that. But the geopolitics thing, it's too big for you. You have to phase into these things.
Have to phase into it, but you know he got the same orders and he got the same pay. Well, maybe not the same pay. He's new, but
right.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. Don't call me Shirley.
Yeah. Well, you know, he got his own sound drop, so you know he's moving up in the world. Now this one's pretty. This is maybe the most brazen thing we've seen. Wall Street apes. Venezuelans are crying on their knees, thanking Trump and America for freeing them from Nicolas Maduro. I added English subtitles so you can understand them. Okay, so let's take a look at this video.
El pueblo finalmente está libre. El pueblo llora por su libertad. Gracias a los Estados Unidos por liberarnos.
Thanks to the United States for freeing us, and long live freedom.
Oye, el dictador cayó.
They finally
finalmente. Estamos libres.
We are free.
Viva Venezuela libre.
Viva Venezuela libre.
Gracias, Dios.
Thank you, God. Thank you.
Oye,
hey, finally fell.
Granadito, hermano, esto es real.
This is
Estamos
real. We
libres.
are free.
Mira, mira cómo está la gente.
Look how
Viva
people are
Venezuela
doing.
libre.
Viva Venezuela
Gracias a Dios,
libre.
esto es para todos
Thank
los
you,
que
God.
aguantaron,
This
se
for all
logró.
those who endured. It is moving. The hero. Don, we are finally free. Thank you, Don Maestro. Long live freedom. Okay, so listen, man. I mean, AI's getting, good, but not that good. Like, you could tell that's AI just watching it. It definitely has that uncanny valley quality to it.
Notice the AI knew to make the women older and clothed, and they knew to make the men young, attractive, and shirtless. It's almost like the AI knows that the target audience for that kind of propaganda wants to see young, attractive, shirtless men crying on their knees.
Well,
It's very
I understand.
perceptive. It's getting very smart.
I
It really
understand Benny Johnson actually made this video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So this got community noted. AI generated video. The license plates of the vehicles in the video do not correspond to those used in Venezuela, plate history, etc. So now you want to see, I keep wanting to do a segment about this. I'm never able to get to it. How Elon is basically trying to create this, curated oligarch-friendly version of reality that he's passing off as more truthful with Grokpedia rather than Wikipedia and with Grok itself. So here's a good example of how reliable Grok is. So somebody asked Grok if it was AI, and Grok says, the video shows real footage of celebrations in Venezuela following Maduro's capture, but with added subtitles. No clear signs of full AI generation in the frames. Faces and movements look natural. However, some editing artifacts like colored bars suggest manipulation. The event itself is confirmed by multiple news sources. Again, I have not seen that in any news sources. I've seen what you see them trying to pass off, celebrations in other places where these exiles are, but not within Venezuela. But somebody else asked and got a different answer from Grok. The video appears to be AI generated, while the underlying event, U.S. forces capturing Maduro on January 23rd, 2026, leading to widespread celebrations in Venezuela, is corroborated by multiple credible news sources. Again, it does not give you any of these sources. It says that you can tell that's programmed in for it to say the credible, same language, credible news sources. So where are they? Such as, right? Where is it? This specific footage shows several hallmarks of generative AI manipulation. These include unnatural facial distortions, e.g., inconsistent expressions, split hairlines, odd lighting on subjects, editing artifacts like colored bars under subtitles, and repetitive phrasing in the overlaid English translations that don't fully sync with natural speech patterns. Yeah, like I said, it's pretty obvious that that's AI if you watch it for more than 10 seconds. Somebody posted here, ask 4 Groks, get 5 answers. Yes, exactly. Now, why would it be doing that? Well, here you go, Elon. Congratulations, President Trump. This is a win for the world and a clear message to evil dictators everywhere. Yes, yes. So we see why Grok is answering the way that it is. Now, you want to see how dangerous this is. Somebody tweeted out, I asked ChatGPT and Grok whether it was a crime for Trump to arrest Maduro, a common and important question today. ChatGPT said yes, falsely assumed, and we'll go to the full thing, falsely assumed that Maduro was legitimately elected, defaulted to referencing the UN Charter and international experts, has an anti-American slant, both explicitly and implicitly. It sounds like a left-leaning law professor at any Ivy League school. Grok said no, correctly explained Maduro's fraudulent rule, explained Trump's power as commander-in-chief to direct the military to execute federal warrants. This is incredibly important to get right, as it will increasingly be the default information layer for society. Yeah, that's not too scary. So Elon loved this. Big difference. Big difference. So let's take a look at what he's talking about here. Okay, so first of all, as we have demonstrated, so right here on ChatGPT, yes, many international law experts call such an operation a crime of aggression and a violation of basic norms of sovereignty in the UN Charter. That is factually correct. So what you're saying is it's incorrect because it's arguing that the U.S. is bound by international law. Like, that's what you're arguing. You're arguing that U.S. law applies internationally, because then you're saying Grok is answering it accurately by saying under U.S. law, this is not a crime because Trump, as commander-in-chief, has broad authority to direct military and law enforcement operations to execute federal warrants. Yeah, within the United States. He does not have authority to go to another country to execute a warrant on another leader. It's a violation of international law. So it's basically a disagreement about the core premise that U.S. law is international law and international law is invalid. Grok is not giving you a more accurate answer. It's giving you a really crackpot, fringe interpretation of the law in which U.S. law applies to every nation on earth, and international law uniquely does not apply to the United States. So that's the kind of newfangled, truthful information you're going to get from Grok and Grokopedia, and right down to the claim that he's a fraudulent leader. There's no evidence for that. There's no evidence for that. International election observers and journalists contest claims of Venezuela election fraud. As we said in a previous segment, if there was evidence, you'd be seeing these election observers being trotted on all of the corporate media to talk about the fraud. There were 800 independent election observers international. Where are all these people talking about election fraud? And Brian Krasenstein here. Pam Bondi has charged Nicolas Maduro with possession of machine guns under the National Firearms Act of 1934, a U.S. gun law. Think about how absurd that is. By that logic, China or Russia can kidnap Trump and sentence him to death for possessing 5,200 nuclear warheads under their domestic laws. American presidents are now supposedly immune from prosecution for their official acts, yet foreign presidents can be arrested for allegedly violating U.S. statutes that do not apply to foreign citizens in foreign countries. You can hate Maduro. Don't forget, he's a lib. You can hate Maduro and still recognize that this precedent is reckless, hypocritical, and dangerous, because once domestic law becomes a weapon against foreign leaders, no country gets to complain when it's done to us next. Well, they're assuming that with the size of our military, they're never going to have to face that. That's why they feel confident they can get away with this. And then you got Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh just going full fascist. This is what I've said for a long time. Matt Walsh is basically like portraits of one of the guys in Handmaid's Tale as a young man. He even looks like a character from A Handmaid's Tale. This is a war for oil, in quotes. First of all, the war lasted like 90 minutes. Second, going to war to secure vital resources for your own people is totally legitimate. Why should we allow some third world communist shithole to control trillions of dollars worth of oil? I mean, I appreciate his honesty. Like, might makes right. And that's it. Fuck you. It's ours. We want it. Right? Blakely, recalling another time we were told we were all done. It only lasted 90 minutes. George Bush on the aircraft carrier. Mission accomplished.
Exactly.
Same energy from Blakely. Clint Russell, you just greenlit the entire neocon agenda. I guess the only problem with the Iraq war was that we didn't steal their oil. Might as well conquer Iran while we're at it. Morally depraved. Yes. But he wasn't done. I totally support turning other countries in our hemisphere into subordinate vassals of the United States. That's the very definition of an America First foreign policy. Again, I appreciate the straightforwardness. I mean, I think sane people, America First means you stay out of other people's business and you worry about your own country and you leave other people to worry about their country. But according to Matt Walsh, America First is you sacrifice American blood and treasure in order to take over other countries, that you should invade other countries. He basically wants a 19th century foreign policy, an expansionist imperial foreign policy. That is not most people, I would argue even most MAGA people's definition of America First. That's not their understanding of America First. Quite the opposite, actually. Zinks. Do you pretend to be a Christian? Yes, he does. Genuinely curious as to why you would want to subject fellow Christians to such subordination. I lose respect for anyone who wishes for such things personally. The U.S. should strive to be a benevolent hegemon, not a slave master. So this is not a lefty here, right? Like, this is somebody who believes in the U.S. as a benevolent hegemon. And this is too much for this person, partly because it's not very Christian, right? Matt Walsh carries his really wears his Christianity on his sleeve. These are mostly in South and Central America, much more religious than we are. And you don't mind subjugating these people, right? So Glenn tweeted out, absolutely fantastic. Bang up job from independent media, spreading mega viral fake videos to millions, all to serve the U.S. government's war propaganda aims, putting corporate media to shame. Just keep retweeting these fake videos. Even if false, they spread joy and purpose. Yeah, they're not putting the corporate media to shame. They're the new corporate media. They're the new corporate media. This is what we've been saying for a while. Would you think the oligarchs didn't notice that the eyeballs of everyone under 40 had shifted to social media? They bought it. They bought all these people. They're all bought. They're all bought. Over 90% of people you think are independent media at this point have been bought, blackmailed, or threatened. There is very little that you're going to see that does not fit those three categories. And who's it for? This guy. We defeated the communists, Mom. Venezuelan oil is ours. That is, I think, very typical of people who take in Matt Walsh or Benny Johnson or Alex Jones and think it's a legitimate or coherent political message. The guy with the man boob sitting in front of the computer in Mom's basement, that I would say is probably your median Matt Walsh viewer at this point. So yeah, just absolutely disgraceful. And Glenn is absolutely right. This historically is the corporate media's job, and they're doing it. They're doing it. We looked at that Washington Post op-ed, which was just absolutely disgraceful Bush era kind of propaganda. But hey, you want to get to the people under 40, you got to get these so-called independent media people to go do the meme play, the fake AI videos. That's pretty amazing. Like AI's not that good that you could pass it off like that. I mean, I don't think that's very smart. Like, if you're trying to pass off this propaganda to put stuff like that out there, but they are. They're all paid for, man. They're all paid for. That's part of what was so frustrating, watching that Somali daycare thing go viral. Like, it was such an obvious op. Like, there has never been, when they invented television, a lot of people said it was the greatest force for propaganda man has ever known. And it was until now. Like, this is for people whose brains are pickling in that brine. Man, they're really pickled. Like, it is, there's never been a medium where it was so easy to emotionally manipulate and push the buttons of people who take in information through that medium.
Yeah, I mean, look, when Matt Walsh says there really crystallizes it, these people just think nothing of subjugating and dominating other people. That's why they're so in love with the cops. That's why they love the police. That's why, every time a cop kills somebody, their go-to is that the person the cop killed had it coming because they were,
Right.
well, you were compliant. So there's an impulse widely spread, among these people to be dominated by strong men, right?
Yeah.
And that is a
Strong,
pattern.
shirtless men.
By strong, shirtless, chiseled men. No, 100% there is 100%, and that is a valid and fair observation at this point. I think, no doubt about it. But yeah, I mean, when it's funny, our friend Anish Shavani used to describe MAGA as having within it embedded somewhere an acknowledgement of the end of empire, which I think was true for a while. But that's nowhere to be seen now. These people obviously look at the end of the day, a lot of these people are just fucking dumb, and they're very susceptible to this kind of propaganda. I mean, you are a fucking historically illiterate moron if you think, I don't care whether you're Matt Walsh or anybody else, if you think that the war lasted 90 minutes because they caught Maduro on the first day. How could you say a thing like that, knowing what we know about the way these things always go? I mean, Iraq being the most recent example, but far from the only one. These interventionist wars become quagmires, and when you're playing on the road, it's almost impossible to win. That's the lesson here. It's almost impossible to win when you're playing on the road. Look at Afghanistan. Literally, within minutes of us leaving, the Taliban was back, and it was all essentially for naught if your aims are at all what you say they are. So yeah, no, at the end of the day, these people are chauvinists. They have zero moral concerns about the rightness or wrongness of just dominating people and extracting resources from under their feet. They don't care. They don't care at all, because that's not that has nothing to do with a world that they're interested in living in. Like they don't think, wouldn't it be nice to live in a peaceful world? No, they think, wouldn't it be nice to live in a world where we dominate others? Right. That's their worldview at the end of the day. And none of these people, I mean, look, I hope whatever money they're making from whoever they're making from, I hope they're saving it, and I hope they're investing it wisely, because they're never going to be taken seriously again on any of these points. I will never take another one of these people seriously when they talk about how, whoa, no, we're anti-war, or we're for free speech, or no, you guys have torched whatever credibility you had permanently. It's done. It's over. And, as this administration becomes more and more toxic, as it is by the day, these people are not going to be able to sustain a living doing this for much longer. So I hope you're making a lot of money now, and I hope you invest it wisely or save it up, so that you guys don't starve in the streets, because this grift is not going to be viable for much longer. It's just
look what's going on with Tim Pool.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. All right. Let's move right on along to some Super Chats and Rumble rants. We are heading over to Rumble for our Q&A in just a few minutes, so you can get there. DueDissidents.com/Rumble takes you right over there. This takes you to the current live stream. DueDissidents.com/Rumble. Okay, let's take a look where we're at right now here. Let's keep going here. David Santucci, still, Tulsi will always have a special place in my heart for her takedown of Kamala Harris in the Dem debate. Best $1 political donation I ever made. You donated $1 to Tulsi? You give us way more than that in super chats every show. Look, you give us a $10 super chat. You gave her $1. All right. Good on you, Dave Santucci. Jorge Himmler Goebbels of Miami. Thanks, Trump. Thank you for that. I read Vanishing New York. It's good. Reviewed it on my worthless YouTube channel. Only Lady Alex watches my crap. I hope you last through 2026. Doubtful.
I'm
Thank
surprised.
you.
I'm surprised you haven't read that.
What's that?
That's tickled to death. I'm surprised he hasn't read that.
Yeah. The New Yorker. You'd think maybe I would have. Let's see here. Kemen says, Keaton, your music podcast is superb. Will you be getting any guests on your show? Because I'd love to see you and Chris Wallace break down the lyrics of Wet Ass Pussy by Cardi B. Yes, that would be fun. He's a big guest. That's the channel, by the way. YouTube.com/@ShufflePod. Thank you for that, Kemen. Vienticus, is he Ashkenaz gay? Thank you, Vienticus. By the way, since you said it before, I did some etymological research. Champing is the champing at the bit, seems to be related to champion, wanted to be unrestrained in front of FYI. Yeah, but people say chomping now. Chomping means biting at the bit. All of these people that still support Trump are trans freedom, not cis freedom. They're not truly freedom. They're like the man in the wig on estrogen. Vienticus says, remember the 4 B's to control people: bribes, blackmail, beliefs, and bullets. I mean, unfortunate suicide. That's right. No Epstein stories tonight, actually. It was all Venezuela all night long. All right, everybody. Well, that is our show. We want to thank everybody very much for being here. Appreciate you all. Thanks to Jake for sticking around with us in the booth. We will see you guys in 5 minutes. If you're sticking around for the Q&A, you can get to the Q&A at newdissidents.com/Rumble. Patreon members, paid Substackers, and paid Locals members are invited to call into the show. Everybody else is welcome to hang out and watch and chat along in the Rumble live chat. But thanks, everybody, very much for being here. We had a great crowd here tonight. We have 1,100 over there on Rumble. Santucci got a final buzzer beater super chat in. I gave Tulsi $1 so she would meet the donor threshold to be in the debate. Interesting. Okay, got it. All right, that makes sense. Well, hey, that was $1 well spent then in that case. So yeah, newdissidents.com/Rumble. That takes you to the Q&A. There will be a 5-minute intermission, and then we will start taking calls. If you're hanging out for the Q&A, we will see you in 5 minutes. Everybody else will see you. Well, Russell will see you tomorrow on the Jimmy Dore Show at 6 p.m. Eastern. That'll be fun. And then we will see you back here on our channel Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Until then, thanks to the YouTubers, thanks to the Rumblers, thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. Appreciate you all. Thanks for staying up with us tonight. Until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.